to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Welcome, everyone. We've got a busy agenda. Try to get through as much as we can before a 7 o'clock public meeting on task classification. First, before we get started, I want to move to public comments. Public comment is an opportunity for members of the public to express their opinions on items both on and not on the official agenda. Public comment is not intended to be a discussion, debate, or dialogue between or among the select board and residents. Additionally, before sharing their comments, we'd like residents to please state their names, addresses, and if known, voting precinct. Each speaker will be limited to speaking once for a maximum of 3 minutes. Residents may raise new issues, identify community problems, and comment on past, present, or future agendas. Absent extraordinary circumstances, the board will not respond or react to the issues raised, and they should not be discussed or debated at that time. We request residents speak respectfully and refrain from criticizing or disparaging individual committee members, town staff, or other resident groups or individuals, and we request residents refrain from making comments that contain political statements or include commentary, criticisms, or other statements about any town staff. Individuals may speak at the discretion of the chair. With that, is there public comment either here or on Zoom? And if people want to submit public comment, they can do so at my email address, which is nduffy@swampscottma.gov. Any public comment? Not seeing any. We will move on to our first agenda item, which is recognition of service to two amazing long-serving volunteers, Tom Ruskin and Monica Tamborine. And they are such humble, incredible people that they preferred not to be here when we.
Well, Tom, I believe, is in Florida.
Florida, yep.
So, and Monica emailed me, said she was very appreciative, but she could not make it tonight. So
Perfect.
I will accept on their.
So we have Tonia Brandowitz, the current chair of the Conservation Commission and also a volunteer extraordinaire, to accept these awards and gifts of appreciation.
This is on, right? Yep. As Neil said, my name is Tonia Brandowitz, and I'm the chair of the Swampscott Conservation Commission, and I'm here tonight to give tribute to Tom Ruskin and Monica Tamborini, who both retired this past year. When I first joined the Swampscott Conservation Commission, Tom and Monica were already very long-standing members. As a newbie to the commission, I learned a lot from them. Not only the workings of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, which the commission administers, but also on the rewards of volunteerism. Becoming volunteers on the commission, Tom and Monica made a commitment to share that most precious of resources, their time. Without volunteers like Tom and Monica, our town would really be at a loss. An unknown author once said, "Volunteering is the ultimate exercise in democracy. You vote in elections once a year, but when you volunteer, you vote every day about the kind of community you want to live in." The Conservation Commission job is not an easy one. It requires a continual commitment, firm commitment to conservation and public service, and that is what Tom and Monica brought to the commission. The responsibilities of a Conservation Commission require a great deal of study, learning, and thought by its members, who become experts only by patience, hard work, and ongoing training and education. Tom and Monica's longstanding commitment to volunteer on the commission made a difference for open space and wetlands and other water resource protection in our town, something they should be very proud of. I know I speak for the others on the commission when I say that Tom and Monica have been missed since their retirement. And while I know that they chose to volunteer selflessly and without expectation of being recognized or rewarded, the Select Board and I, on behalf of the Commission, wish to do just that. We want them to know just how much their years of dedication are appreciated and valued. I am therefore pleased to accept on their behalf these certificates of appreciation and awards. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony, for coming down and for accepting these awards. So the official citation of appreciation is in recognition of their extraordinary contributions to the town and its conservation efforts as a longtime member of the Conservation Commission, and that's for Monica, and I'm the same for Tom. And then we have these awards for Conservation Commission on behalf of a grateful community. Thank you for your dedication and service to the town of Swampscott. Anything from the board?
I really appreciate their service.
Yeah, your leadership, like, you're an appropriate perhaps for their leadership, but I'm glad that the commission's in such good hands with you, and I'm grateful for all their time. And I'm grateful for this recognition, as I think there are so many people that in years and decades past have kind of gone into the sunset unnoticed until their absence was noticed in the committees and the void is left, but certainly by the appointing authority to acknowledge it's important. So thank you for doing it. Thank you, Sean.
Yeah, I'm humbled at times to think of, the open space that we've been able to create, the parks, the trails, the things that will last for generations. And we think back on the leadership of the members of this commission. It seems, incredible to be able to serve as a volunteer on a conservation commission and create a future legacy that will last forever in your hometown. This is the gift that members of this commission, members of the planning board, members of other boards and committees get to give. And certainly, we recognize these two incredible individuals, but there's so many more that continue to serve, and it does really make Swampscott the unique community that it is. So I share that not just for those that are currently serving, those that have served, but those that we need to serve. There's some extraordinary opportunities here. So contact us and look online and really engage in democracy. Wonderful words tonight, Tony. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on, we have an update on license renewals, and I think is Angelica or?
Angelica is going to be presenting a presentation tonight, but we have Chief Casada here as well, and representatives of the Swampscott Police Department to really support some of these responsibilities.
Marzi is also going to come here too. She'll be here shortly.
Joe, do we have camera issues? Yeah, we just noticed that it didn't switch when Tony was speaking. I didn't know if otherwise. It didn't switch on our screens anyways.
Down here?
It,
We will update that.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here to open the presentation that explains about Town of Swampscott's annual license renewals. I'm here to express to our community that we take this oversight and regulation very seriously. We as a police department could not make this happen without our partnership between the building department, the community and economic development department, and our partners at ABCC. I just want you to know that this topic is not about just interpreting and enforcing regulations, but it's about the collective vigilance that we have as a community to ensure that our children, our residents, and our town is safe in terms of public safety. And so while I don't take credit for this. I give all the credit to Angelica Noble, Marzi, and Sergeant Jay Law on this as well as Steve Cummings from the building department. So without further ado, I'll let Angelica explain the process to you.
Thanks, Chief.
So I know that a number of the board members were here last year and the year before for this presentation, but we're going to go over it again for our new board members, and we're going to do it a little bit differently this year. So instead of having liquor license be separate from common victulars, we put them all together, so it was just one easy presentation. So this presentation will cover the retail liquor license, common victular license, entertainment license, as well as Class 2 used cars license. And you can switch. So I'll start by, can you just click, oh, there it goes. I will start by going over the process. So the process for annual license, the annual liquor license begins in October. So we receive the packets from the ABC with all of the materials that we need to send out to our license holders. And then a list of the licensees is sent to the building department and the police department. Also, the fire department has the list too, because all three agencies conduct their own inspections. So in November, we send out the packets, and licensees come in, they're fingerprinted at the police station, and then inspections are completed by the building department, the fire department, and the police department. Each inspection has its own set of guidelines, but at the end we all come together to make sure that everyone has done their inspection. And then also Patrick, the town treasurer, confirms that all licensees are current as far as their invoices due. So we just make sure that all licensees pay all of their bills up until November 30th. So then in December, we're here tonight. The select board is going to vote to approve the liquor license, and then I take the renewal forms that are all signed within the month of November, send them to the ABCC, and then I create the license, and the license are then distributed to the establishments. I wrote on here that an approved license will not be issued if there are pending items. So in the past, what we did is we always anticipate there being some sort of item that is pending, but I don't physically give the license, which means they're not able to serve unless that is taken care of in December. And then I just wanted to throw on here too that the liquor license isn't just during the renewal season. We also have a number of amendments that come in throughout the year. In this year, we had a new license that was Pomona. We also had a transfer of license from to Terrific by the Sea. Right now, we're pending the alteration of premise for Cafe Avellino, and we also had Uno's that has closed. So one of the biggest parts of the liquor license renewals is the fingerprinting process. So I believe it was in 2009, the town of Swampscott adopted a policy to have the responsible manager on the license be fingerprinted. So we have them come in, they're fingerprinted, it's sent to the FBI and comes back, the chief signs off on it, and then if they're suited to hold the license, they're obviously approved. We do collect annual fees for those, so there's $70 that goes to the town, and then $30 goes to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So the next part of the license, which Sergeant Locke is going to speak on, is the annual compliance. So this is the process in which we have an underage individual go into a business and they attempt to get served alcohol, and that's how we ensure that our licensees are complying with the law. And then also on here are the daily operations that the police department does each and every shift to ensure, as Chief Casada said, that our licensees are following rules, regulations, and ensuring a safe community. Would you like to explain?
When we do the compliance checks, thank you. There's a set of regulations we have to follow, pretty rigid, to the safety of the juvenile and for everybody else involved. We try to get someone with a young look. We can't change their look. We can't make them look older. They cannot carry any ID. We give them a set amount of money for every establishment, the same amount of money, and they go order the exact same beverage at every place. If a violation does happen, they need to remain on scene for a moment or two in like a bar establishment. They need to remain on scene for a few moments, and then they'll come out and grab one of the investigators, myself or Detective Delano. Sometimes we have an ABCC representative with us. There's a very rigid vetting process to get them into what they're doing. Obviously, we have to sign off with the parents. We document them thoroughly, who they are. We check the backgrounds, any criminal background. So we know we have a clean individual going to do what we need to be done. Then for the notification purposes, for letting that the situation is going to happen, in January of 23 coming up, notices will be posted in public areas such as the police department, town hall, and then it'll be sent out to the press that these checks are going to happen. And from that, we completed last year. We had a couple of violations, as we were aware. And they went through their process, and everybody seems to get the educational part of it, which is the main goal here. I'm not trying to hurt anybody, but there are rules and regulations that need to be followed. Also, we hosted a training not too long ago with the ABCC at the police department. If we could do more, that'd be great, but with time and money, it's a big thing. But that's definitely a positive to have that type of training come in, and we're able to host it, and it's available to other officers to assist in what we're doing. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, so when there's a component in OUI arrest that you document where they had their last drink, if it's an establishment, and that goes into the report, which then gets processed through the court, and it's not a component of the police department compiling the information. It actually goes to the town clerk office, town hall. So you'll be able to pick up any violation coming from that end much easier. Any questions?
Thanks, Jay.
Any questions
Any-
about the compliance check or the?
Were there any establishments that were out of compliance,
So
this most recent?
the last compliance check that we had was, there were 3, but we did that last year. So the compliance check was last November, and then the hearings were in December. So we haven't done one since then.
Got it.
But they plan, I believe Ted has it planned for January, right?
It's going to be posted in January, and then we'll set out to do.
So I have a question. So you tell people we're going to be doing a compliance check?
You have,
It's part of the
You
regulation.
have to? You can't say, listen, we're going to do a compliance check all year long?
well, that's it. So the notification says that there'll be a compliance check throughout the calendar year, and then we can go in whenever. But the issue is that you can't just say, okay, let's go in on Friday. You have to find the underage person who's going to go in. You have to make sure they get signed off on. So it's kind of a big process, but it could be any day.
And how often do you do compliance checks throughout the year?
Historically, I believe they've been,
Once a year for of that nature, but if we have an incident, obviously we investigate as incidents come in. But we have a set scheduled event once a year for
and the
doing those checks.
ABCC has their own event that they do. So it's essentially 2 compliance checks per year, and they're both like surprise visits, but the establishments know about it. And then, just to clarify too, so the police department also does like an administrative compliance check. So that's when, if there's a new business owner who opens, if there's a transfer of license, and every November during licensing season, criminal investigation, the CID department, they go in and they ensure that the proper signage is up. They have their license is posted. They make sure that all of their signage is up to date. So that's an additional, kind of like an additional compliance check, but it doesn't include an underage individual.
And is there any education or training for actual businesses, or license holders?
We hosted a training last year where we had a special investigator from the ABCC. It was actually this year, it was in March. She came to the police station and we invited all businesses and we encouraged them to come, and I believe all but one came, and it was because they had something else, some prior obligation that they had to go to. But we also encouraged them to send anybody. So if they wanted to send their wait staff, they could come. It wasn't just the owner. So we tried to make sure that the whole from top down would be able to be trained. And we do hope to schedule this at least once a year, but it is hard to schedule with the ABCC. It's hard to get somebody out, but we're gonna try and schedule it, make it an annual thing. Are there any other questions about the compliance, the process? Diane, can you switch? Okay, so we'll now get into the types of license and the licensing fees. So we have Section 12, which is on-premise, and Section 15, which is off-premise. So there's a restaurant license, which we have all, I don't want to just read off the slide, but there's all alcoholic beverages is 2,400, restaurant with just wines and malts is 2,100, and so on. So there's restaurants, clubs, veterans clubs, package stores, off-premise and package stores off-premise, and then most recently, we just adopted a policy for bring your own bottle, which will be $400 per year. And just because this is a new policy that we had just adopted, I did add in some of the what I thought was the most important information about the BYOB for anybody who might be watching or interested. So the policy was adopted in November of 2022. This policy allows alcoholic beverages to be brought, to let the patron bring alcoholic beverages in, and it is limited to only malts, malt beverages and wine. We would require that the employees of the business are trained through an industry-approved alcohol training program, and the consumption of alcohol must be limited to that of the common victualler hours. And the permittee must allow compliance inspections by Swampscott Police Department or the ABCC. We require proof of liability insurance. Like I said, the fee is $400, and I'm currently working in the final stages with Marzi to finalize an application for, we have one business who is interested in this, so we're working to finalize that application and get it out to them ASAP. Can you switch slides?
Just to confirm on that, didn't we decide that the first year there would be no fee?
The first, yeah, that's in there.
Yeah.
The first year it would be waived.
Okay, just
Yep.
making sure, thanks.
Okay, this is the most exciting part. So I hope that this quote, I'm gonna try and explain it. I hope that it makes sense, but please stop me if there's any questions. So we'll look at the table on the left first. This is the quota for restaurants and clubs, Section 12 on premise. So, as you know, every 10 years, there's a census, and that determines the population, and each city and town is given X amount of license based on their population. So, the first section of our quota is for all alcoholic beverages. This number is based on just the census, so we have 17 allowed. We've issued 13, so there are 4 available within the census quota. So in 2017, Sean brought it up that the town of Swampscott could really benefit from having additional license. So we did have 8 additional license added via special legislation. We have used 2 of them, and so there are 6 of those available. So in total, we have 10 all alcoholic beverage license available in the town of Swampscott. Something that I did want to point out for special legislation is that this is, there are guidelines for special legislation, so it has to be in B1, B2, or B3 districts. So as long as the business lies within those districts, then they could we could grant their license under special legislation. And this is also a great tool that we can use to maximize the amount of license. So we want to be granting special legislation license in order to maximize our census license. We also have one Veterans Club. This is exempt from our quota, and I did double check with the ABCC, and they said that those are unlimited, so we could have as many veterans clubs in town as we wanted. It's not just limited to one. And the final type of Section 12 on-premise license is wines and malts. We have 5 allowed, and we've issued 1, so we have 4 available. Are there any questions about the quota or the special legislation?
Yes. Angelica, are these licenses use it or lose it? Like, is there any?
No, they're not. They were the special legislation.
Yes, yes.
No, they're not. I believe they stick with the town.
Okay, so everything's census driven. Nothing is like if you don't issue a license within 5 years, those get put back into.
I've never. They've never said that. I can double check with them, but they've never said that. I think that they anticipate the population increasing. Right, so you're saying, like, if the population were to decrease, would they deduct license if we don't use them?
Or if we just don't issue them.
No, I don't think so. I think that everything is based on the particular town.
Okay.
That's how they've always related to me. And special legislation would be the same way.
Okay, thank you.
So on the right-hand side, this is our package store license quota. These are off-premise. We have all alcoholic beverages, the same. Actually, they're both based on the census, so we're allowed 4. We've issued 3. There's 1 available. And wines and malts, we have 5. We've issued 3, and we have 2 available. So in summary, we have 10 license available for all alcoholic beverages, 4 license available for wines and malts for on-premise, and then 1 all alcoholic beverage for package store, and 2 wines and malts for package store. The next slide is a visual that just shows, it breaks up the different sections, so it's essentially the same. It shows our 2 businesses who were granted under special legislation, which is Cafe Avellino and Mexicali Grill, and also the Veterans Club has a little green star there, so it's just important to know that those are exempt from our quota. And then on the right is just a visual of our different businesses that we have. And then the next slide. So these are all the license. I don't need to go through them, but I will point out that we do have 2 licensees whose inspection is pending for their own internal issues that they have to fix internally, and then once they do, they're going to reach out to us as soon as possible. But of course, if they don't do that within the before the end of the year, they will not be given a license, and they would have to reapply as a new license. And then the rest of the businesses, their building inspection is scheduled for tomorrow. And then we do have 1 business who is pending a change of manager, and then another business who is applying, who is seeking a new location. Are there any questions? So that sums up the liquor license. If there's any specific questions that I can answer about it.
Where do we fall in line with the fees compared to other communities?
So I did look at other communities. We assess every year. We look at Marblehead, Lynn, Salem. We are very comparable to them. We're kind of right in line.
Okay, thank you.
We're not like way under, way over.
We do look at that every year. We ask these questions every year when we go through the presentation, and we're going to continue to, look at your communities just to make sure that we're competitive.
So the ones where it says scheduled 12/8, that's, their inspection is scheduled for tomorrow.
Exactly, yes.
And then the ones that say pending, they've been inspected and there are issues they have to resolve, or the
They have not been-
scheduling of the inspection is pending?
Yeah, they have not been inspected. One of them is waiting for internal paperwork. They're a corporate business, so she had explained that they're waiting for their fire certificate internally, and once they get that, they'll be able to fill out the application to have our building commissioner go out there and and inspect. I'm not sure why it's late. I think they're just having trouble getting it internally. And then the second business that's pending, he had explained that it was a transfer of license and there was some administrative information, I guess, that they had to change with their fire safety. But they do have an occupancy permit. They are all set. They're okay to open, but as far as the renewal, they need to change some items on their end, and then they hope to get that to us within the next week or two.
Okay.
And then one thing, we would be remiss if we didn't remind you that, you probably recall last year, CNL Liquor Store, who is no longer has a storefront location, they were granted a 6-month license. And obviously, they're still continue to look for a new location. They have not found one, but they did request a new license. We had reached out to town council to seek their directive in regards to the process that we should follow, or that we could recommend to the select board. And they suggested that a show cause hearing or due cause hearing should be held by the select board regarding their license.
So we're not voting on that tonight, or we're voting on that tonight?
Well, what is in front of you tonight are the license renewal, and CNL Liquor Store did request a license. We just wanted to bring to your attention that if you were to approve a license, I think you can deny it, or, no, you would have to do a show cause
Due
hearing.
process.
Due
It's
process,
involved
exactly.
with a revocation, because essentially, if the board denied the license tonight, that would be a revocation, and town council has advised us that, in order to avoid any type of legal issue, it should be approved tonight, and we should schedule a hearing in January to ensure that the license holder has a due process
But
hearing.
their license already expired.
It did. And
So therefore, they're not prejudiced if we don't renew them tonight, because they already have a expired license. So what if we took no action tonight on their license?
It was my original, if you took no action, it would be tantamount to a revocation, and.
What did they put as an address on their renewal?
It was my original position that we were just not going to recommend this license.
But we've
and-
never approved a license that doesn't have an address.
Because if they don't have,
Understood. I'm
they're signing the
sympathetic
license
to
under
those
the penalty of
points.
perjury that everything's accurate and true, so if the address is inaccurate, then
Well, they did come back to us just by background. They came back and asked for a 6-month extension to find another home, and so we gave them a 6-month, last
Yeah.
December when we did the licenses, we gave them a 6-month license. That's all
Right.
we renewed it for, and they haven't come back or anything, and nor have they found a location. And the sole purpose of us issuing licenses, the criteria, if you look at it, is pretty much location dependent. So I don't know how we could possibly ever have the basis to issue a license if there's no location. I just find that befuddling to me.
I share that perspective.
So if we don't-
I am reporting out what town council has shared with us.
So if we don't renew it tonight, then we would have a show cause hearing
Yes, the town
before
council.
January 1st.
No, I think what they're saying is town council's saying you have to renew it, which, again, if town council's gonna say things like this and you totally disagree with them, that's a good excuse to have town council sitting here, so that we can disagree with them as well, just because it's, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but it's an
Understood.
Oh, so we renew it.
asinine analysis.
We renew it and then have a hearing.
And then we give it to
cancel
them, and then the burden's on us to have the show cause to revoke it is just crazy to me, when we all know they don't exist.
So the message from KP Law was that if the board is inclined to is not inclined to renew the license, Tom McEnany, Town Council recommends that the board schedule a show cause hearing before December 31st this year to consider canceling the license under General Law, Chapter 138, subsection 77, based on the failure of CNL to exercise the license.
So we have to have a hearing because they didn't renew prior to July.
Okay, fine, and then that's what my suggestion would be, that we have a show cause hearing.
I just have a background question.
Sure.
So they had a valid license when they had a building. They came before us and said, give us 6 months to find a new building. That expiration would have been the end of June of this year, correct?
Yes, I can't be
Sometime-
exact about the
okay.
dates, but yes, in concept.
Between June and now, they've done nothing
Well, I don't know if they've
except
talked to
file
anybody
a
in town.
renewal.
I've had several discussions with them. I shared with them locations of potential sites, new things that were coming on the market, vacant storefronts, and other locations. Unfortunately, none of them met their requirement.
Okay. Thank you.
So is there a reason the show cause has to happen for December 31st, since it's not, the failure to do so is not going to create a lapse of their permit, because their permit already lapsed?
Already lapsed. That's
Yeah.
So I think that December 31st makes sense for someone who currently has a permit,
Yes.
right? And theirs would lapse if we didn't take action, but theirs isn't lapsing because it actually already lapsed.
already.
We just didn't renew yet.
And if their permit is lapsed, how are they obtaining a renewal of a permit that's already lapsed?
Well, and is there anything with the ABCC that requires us by December 31st?
I don't believe so. I know that the owner had mentioned like a pocket license, so other cities and towns, I've never looked into this, but they allow a pocket license, which you can just hold the license. So if you're looking, but I've never asked town council about that. One thing, I guess, just to keep in mind is that we do have a license available. So last year, when he was asking, it was the last license, so it kind of prevented opportunity for someone else. But now that our quota went up, we do have a license available. So if the board chooses to, I guess, table that business for tonight, and then we do schedule a show cause hearing before December 31st, it's not preventing somebody else from exploring Swampscott. I know that that was one of the reasons, is that we didn't want him to be holding a license and that would prevent someone else. But that's not the case anymore, so.
So, but I think that we would have to renew the license tonight to have a show cause hearing on December 31st.
No, I think if Marzi's thing says if you just read it again, Marzi, because it
Says that I
actually
have it here.
presupposed a negative.
A non-renewal of a license is tantamount to revocation or cancellation. Therefore, if the board is not inclined to renew the license, I recommend that the board schedule a show cause hearing
Before the 31st.
before December 31st to consider canceling the license.
Right, so therefore, we're not,
But how would we
we're not
cancel
not
it?
renewing it tonight, we're taking no action tonight. And then the reason before the 31st is because he's saying that for some reason we have to make a decision before the 31st. So we're just taking no action tonight. We're not saying no, we're not saying yes, they don't even have, this is the absurdity of it all. They don't even have a valid license.
Well, that's
because it
that's why I
lapsed.
don't
If it
understand
pretended
the
that-
mechanism of having a show cause hearing
Typically, the
to
license.
cancel a license that doesn't exist.
Typically, the license expires at the end of the year, so I just want to be clear that council knew that this was a 6-month extension and that it did not go to the end of the year. I wonder if that is why he is saying we need a show cause hearing by the end of the year, because he thinks it is expiring, but it is in fact also already
right.
expired.
I can go back and double check, but I mean, this was an ongoing discussion. Council was aware.
We've had
Okay.
numerous discussions with town council about this particular license.
Once again,
Makes
I
sense.
appreciate their legal advice, clear as mud. Clear as mud. Helpful. All right, want to finish the presentation, and then we'll...
Yeah, let's finish the presentation. Sorry. Thank you, Angelica.
I was looking for an additional email from Tom, because he had emailed us twice with his initial response back when this had expired. But if I find it after, I can talk about it. So I think this concludes the liquor license portion of the presentation, and we will move on to the common victulars renewal process.
So can I just make a comment on there's the Richdale you have listed as an all alcohol wine and malt, but I believe it's a package store wine and malt. You have it in the tables correctly, like your count is correct, but on this table, it's listed as an all alcohol wine and malt, and Richdale's just a package wine and malt. Again, on slide 11, your slide 11. The last company is called Richdale.
All alcohol wines and malts.
Yeah, but they're package.
Oh,
Yeah, so just.
I'm sorry. Oh,
You have it right in the
Yes,
count.
yeah,
The count is
yeah.
all right. It's just here, I think you just erroneously just referenced.
okay.
So
What?
just, if that gets corrected, make sure that we're,
Oh, I changed okay, yes, I changed, I
Packaged
flip-flopped,
wine
and
malt.
that should say package store wines and malts. I'll change that way.
great, thank you.
Next year, it'll be correct. The common victualer's license These in the entertainment are all processed through the Office of Community Development, but Marissa was unable to make it tonight, so I'm going to do my best to explain this. The common victulars is required for any business that serves food, so this is essentially the license that allows an establishment to have food and seating. The Department of Health approves each application, so Marissa works closely with Jeff, and they ensure that the Department of Health goes into the business and that they obviously are suitable to offer this license. And similar to the liquor license, assuming that these are all approved tonight, a license will be created and they will be brought to each establishment, and they do expire at the end of the calendar year, similar to the liquor license. There's a renewal fee of $125 for these establishments. And the next two slides show all of the businesses who are applying for the common victualers license. A lot of the information is redundant, but we wanted to make sure that it was all here. So these two tables have the hours of operation as well as the capacity for each business and the renewal status. So we recommend that, same as liquor license, that all of these businesses are renewed and approved for next year, except for the few that are highlighted in red, which are pending. We anticipate them bringing their information before the end of the year, but again, if they do not return the information before the end of the year, they would not be given the common victualers license. Are there any questions about the common victualers license? So the next section of this is the entertainment license process. So if a business is looking to have live music, dancing, trivia, movies, if there's any sort of events, we do require them to hold an entertainment license. This is also very similar to common victualers, processed through the Office of Community Development. All balances have to be paid in full to the town before we issue this license, and they are renewed each year to be expiring at the end of December, and the renewal fee is $125. We have not received any complaints in 2022. Nothing has come into the Office of Community Development. And we had a meeting, and we're currently working to recategorize the fees for the entertainment license for the following year, just because this does include televisions, widescreen TVs, things like that. And we had a discussion that probably maybe a TV is either going to be at a different tiered price, or we're just going to revamp it all and bring it to the board before we have to renew these. The next two slides, again, a little bit redundant, but related to this particular license. So they are the names of the businesses, the entertainment hours, which obviously fall somewhere in between their hours of operation, and then the right-hand column shows what the entertainment for that particular business is. Are there any questions about common victualers or entertainment?
Is there a distinction when the television is used as a menu board?
I'm going to ask Marzi on that one.
Well, that would not be, so it's not,
It's not considered entertainment.
it's not
then,
considered
right?
entertainment,
Okay,
right?
I just wondered, because like Dunkin' Donuts is on here as two TVs. Are they watching TV, or are they just using it as menu boards? That's all.
That's kind of the discussion that we had about this, is that maybe, obviously, if you're at a sports bar and they have TVs that are playing sporting entertainment, that's a little bit different than Dunkin' Donuts, who might have the TV there for background noise, or they're just using it to play music. So that's kind of what sparked the discussion of tiering the entertainment license and maybe having different prices for different types of entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
And that concludes the, so that concludes all of the license for my portion, which is liquor license, common victualers, and entertainment. The final license that we'll be discussing is the Class 2 renewals.
It does matter.
So the Class 2 are used car dealerships. Similar pricing, so the annual fee is $125. There's an annual inspection conducted by the police department. And similar to liquor license and entertainment is that all balances owed to the town must be paid in full, and the licensees have to renew each year. So we had, I have Sergeant Locke is here to discuss the inspections and answer any questions, and also talk about what we do as a police department to inspect each business to make sure they're in compliance. But I just wanted to point out, right now, we have 3 businesses who have active license, Four Seasons Motor, Paradise Auto Sales, and Euroline. But Euroline informed us earlier this week that they are unable to get us their application in time. They do plan to renew it, but it's just not gonna, they weren't able to get it together for tonight, but they do hope to get it together and present it to the select board at a later date, but also understand that there could definitely possibly be a lapse in their license, and there could be a time period in January that they aren't able to sell used cars. I also added photos if we want to just get familiar with which business is which.
Yep.
Do you want to explain the?
Can you explain what that means? It says number of cars. What does that mean? 6?
So their license, the exhibit parking plan only allows them to sell 6. So if each license, I have a license here, so an example is sales are limited to 4 vehicles parked in spaces 2 to 5 as marked on the exhibit parking plan. So that means that if they're only licensed to sell 4 cars on their premise, they can only sell 4 cars on the premise.
Do you mean present 4 cars for sale, or do you mean sell 4 cars an hour, a day?
No, they can only present 4 cars.
Okay,
They're only licensed to have 4 cars on the premise to be sold.
So what are the other cars on premise for?
Being fixed, so that's what we were discussing.
Yeah, there's so a lot of times when they're bringing in these off-lease or used cars, they need maintenance and need to be fixed. Those vehicles are not designated for sale. They can have a certain amount of cars, whatever the building inspector says. I don't know what's going to regulate that end of it, but like a Four Seasons Motor Group, for example. They can have 6 cars on display they have to be labeled. There's a sticker that goes on the windshield that's being full display. And being that like Four Seasons is a continuation of one building, so there's other businesses in that building, we have to have them pen off the vehicle. So if you drive by there at some point, you'll see chains up and down in the side that qualifies for fitting the penning off of the vehicles from the other establishments. So in their floor plan, if they have 6 cars for sale, they have them out front. Again, display, they have to have the titles and everything that needs to go with the car. But they can have, again, we'd have to refer to however the building inspector is going to allow vehicles.
The ZBA has issued them a special permit to allow 51 parking spaces.
And they have a large facility. In the back, there's a very large garage out back. They wouldn't even know that as big as it is, which is usually full of cars. But I know, I just want to address one thing. I know that, so they can have 6 cars, and then I know Board of Selectmen had a question in the past about online sales. I spoke with the Division of Vehicle Services from the Mass State Police, Sergeant John McNeil, and he tells me that there are no Mass General laws regulating an online sale, so they can have these 6 cars physically sitting on premises that can sell unlimited amount online. As long as they're not anywhere near their property. They can't be physically, no other car. That car cannot be ever on their property during this time.
So there are 49 cars listed on their website tonight. Have we checked to see if any of those 49 cars, besides 6, are sitting on the premises tonight? Because there also was just under 50 cars parked at the premises tonight.
We just recently went 4 days ago to check on the vehicles that are for sale. Are again out front. There's a book, a white book inside. It's got 3 areas for citations. One area they sign it when the car first comes in. Second area that it's as long as it's sitting, and then the third area is when it gets sold. So that book has to be presented to us when we go in. And any sale from this calendar year has to be recorded in that book as well.
Sergeant Locke, just looking at slide 20, which is the images of Four Seasons Motor Group. It looks like there's two vehicles that are kind of parked, kind of up on the curb, on the sidewalks, a little bit. Is that typical for?
In that area, there's, on that side of the street, well, both sides of the street, but we've addressed that multiple times with them. This signage has gone up, and signage says mysteriously come down. So the town's taken care of that a couple of times for us. But a vehicle being parked on the side, as long as it's not interrupting the flow of traffic, that's a tight street to begin with.
Yep.
We've always had a sort of litmus test of if you can walk by the car with a baby carriage type of situation for a curb issue. Vehicles aren't supposed to be parked on the curb. That's sort of a rolling area, not checked off with the granite curbing like it is on the other side.
This photo is also from Google Earth, so it's not from today.
Yeah.
So I don't,
Fair enough.
just to make sure, I don't know what was there today. I'm sure there were cars there, but this is a Google Earth photo.
But the town has recently, looking at that photo there, the town recently in the past year has installed curbings and such to sort of
Around the corner.
show with the perimeter where you need to park and who needs to follow what rules.
There's just two more photos of the other two establishments, if there's any questions about these ones here. That's Paradise Auto Sales, of course, and then right across the street is Euroline Motors. So this is the business that has not given their application, so.
Correct, yeah,
We wouldn't
I have questions here too. I know this may be a Google Earth photo as well, but I've driven down Paradise Road, and there are 6, 7, 8, 10 cars parked alongside of a state road, and that is certainly a hazard, especially in bad weather, even in good weather. So I'm just curious as to what type of enforcement action Swampscott Police is taking just to ensure the safety of the roadways of motorists who are driving on Paradise Road.
So we've received complaints with that parking situation. Also, Franklin is, where that white building is in the background, that's Franklin going down there. And some of those vehicles have migrated over there.
Yep.
And we've addressed that with the owner many times. Some vehicles have been tagged. The vehicles out front there, just beyond that vehicle, the final vehicle with the entrance to the DPW, is a no parking. It's technically a state highway. It's not supposed to be any parking anyway.
Yep.
There's a little give because they're operating a business. Those vehicles are supposed to be moving, coming and going, moving. They're not supposed to stay in the spot where they're in for extended period of time. So we address what we can address at the moment.
Yeah, there've also been some complaints about, from one of, if not both of these organizations, these businesses, on Swampscott Road as well,
Yeah.
in the neighborhood. So
Yes.
I'm just curious if there have been any citations or other enforcement actions taken by Swampscott Police over here, just to protect the neighborhood.
We've issued parking tickets
Yeah.
sporadically to different vehicles that are out there. We've also, again, Detective Delano will get on the phone and call the business, hey, you need to move your cars, give them a heads up, a warning, again,
Sure.
you're operating a business, but, these businesses can't impact the surrounding communities, which on certain days they do.
Yeah, and that's really my major concern is the fact that there is continued, disruption, and cars parked for long periods of time in these residential neighborhoods from these businesses that just blatantly disregard.
Yeah, we try to
Calls-
address,
the
like I said,
calls
we try to
from
address
Detective
the violation when we get it. That's obviously a very well-traveled road.
Does it tend to be both of them?
Canadian.
Is it both of the dealerships on Paradise that?
Yeah, so the other dealership, as you know, is right across the street, just out of the shot. So
Yeah.
Swampscott Road is, Swampscott is pretty much right behind where that camera's taking the
Yeah.
picture. So they tend to stay on their sides with their own vehicles.
Right. So Franklin
But-
tends to be Euroline,
Frankly, we
And-
tend to have yes.
Swampscott Road tends to be Paradise Auto.
And then what about Four Seasons? Do you have a lot of complaints from residents over there?
We had as many, I think pretty much even, but yeah, we definitely had complaints with the proper signage going up, and we've addressed how they need to, if someone's parking there. Not all those cars parked there are theirs. People going down to the plaza or somewhere else, the floor shop and such.
If I can chime in, we're currently working on a plan to address this. To be completely frank, a lot of we ask people about the vehicles, and people say, that's not mine, that's theirs. There's a lot of finger pointing in opposite directions, so that's where we're addressing right now.
So Euroline, I mean, my recollection is, so they just started selling cars this year. This is the first time they started selling cars. We issued them a permit last year, and we had a long conversation with them about their parking plan in this particular issue. And we're, we were, given a lot of assurances that it wouldn't be an issue after the first month or two.
Diane, I think you need to go on mute.
Yeah.
I think your voice sounded.
I'll try it.
Just so you
I don't want to hear my voice like that.
I don't think you sound like a Muppet at all. Just so you know that.
Thanks. So I think that, there's been frustration with this issue, I think, dating back years. But certainly with Euroline, it's not as if this wasn't part of their application process, so I don't know, I mean.
That Swampscott Ave is terrible. You take a turn off the main road, you have to take it fast because you don't have a lot of opportunity, and then you pull on the street, somebody's coming around a car that's parked, and you got cars on both sides. I travel that often. It's less than ideal on a regular basis. And then add snow on top of that makes it really difficult.
Can you clarify what it is that you're looking into, right? Because I
So
know when we talked about traffic committee we talked to traffic committee, and I think frustration with how we deal with traffic changes is pretty well documented. For example, Pine Street doesn't have resident parking signs up in an area that we 4 months ago voted to make resident parking, for example. But are you holistically looking at, just kind of give us a sense of what you're looking at?
So Officer Lloyd is in charge of this project, and so what we're trying to do is find out what legal teeth, essentially, that we may have as a police department, as a town, to enforce this, to ensure that this stops. Right now, it doesn't seem like we're getting a lot of cooperation in terms of, it's hard to determine whether, okay, first off, we need to find out who these vehicles are registered to, where do they come back to, who are the owners of these vehicles. So there's a lot of legwork that's involved in this, and we want to make sure that we talk to the businesses so that they have an opportunity to speak for themselves and give us their version of events of all the vehicles parked, as well as us coming up with some type of plan to address this, whether it be we try to tow all the vehicles, do we have the correct signage in place, and again, contacting town council to find out exactly what we can do to change this, because I agree with your sentiments. I as well, it's especially coming from the outside, just driving into town, nothing irks me more than oh gosh, I'm going to pull out into this road. I hope I don't get hit. And so that, without giving specifics, Peter, on exactly, we are trying to kind of build a case into, okay, what can we do to resolve this issue? Because it's obviously not happening.
Thank you.
I think, Sean, you might be able to clarify this, but I think that the building commissioner too was looking into options, right, to give citations on the town side for these businesses who are not in compliance. So
That's correct. We did meet today. Unfortunately, you know, as Selectman Spelios has pointed out, we have been talking about this for too long. And part of this is zoning compliance, and it's also the select board regulatory compliance with the license. And so we've just got to just start enforcing compliance.
I think if Officer Lloyd works together with the building commissioner, then we can really come up with a plan between our departments to be able to make sure that they're in compliance.
I think the most important thing, look, we want these businesses to be successful. They're small businesses. We heard a very compelling story about the proprietor for this business. And I think in some ways, I know that they're struggling to, you know, be successful, but they have to do it in a way that really ensures that the entire community will be safe. And part of our effort to really think strategically is to walk softly, but carry a book of citations and let them know that they are going to get tied up in a due process of regulatory compliance if they just can't seem to balance the business with, you know, our responsibilities for keeping that neighborhood safe.
So Chief, would it be possible to have a plan within the next 4 weeks? That
Certainly,
you could
we'll come back and,
present back to us, you know, including if citations are being written, if you are getting complaints, just some real empirical data versus
absolutely.
non-empirical. I will say that I don't live that far from Four Seasons, and, you know, I find them, to be pretty much in compliant quite often, but maybe other neighbors don't. There used to be issues with parking on the side, and there hasn't been for quite some time, so. But again, that's just my experience. Maybe other neighbors have different experiences.
If I could just add something for enforcement purposes. You mentioned Pine Street. I'm the court officer for the department, so I handle cases going down and traffic appeals and such. And today, I think out of 7 citations that were being appealed, I think 5 of them were off of Pine Street. So the officers, nod to the patrol units. They're out there doing what they're doing. This area here is a very highly traveled road that we said. It's, main access through town. We have, any portion of the day, you'll see a cruiser posted up somewhere a little further up towards the school or right there, because when you're coming down the hill, you're coming into that choke point, and it's also you're taking a left. So, like you're saying, there's definitely physics of the road plays into a lot of things. So, they definitely they're out there doing their thing.
All right, any more questions or comments on any of this? So is the hope tonight that we approve the licenses in all of these categories other than the ones that are pending? Is that scheduled?
Yes, I think my question is it possible to approve, so of course approve the ones that are ready for approval, but approve others? And would we have to come back once we get that information, or can we approve them and then once they submit it, like approve it pending?
Yeah.
And if they submit it, then we can give them the license?
I leave that to the board. I think we talked about.
Is there a
CNO.
legal issue with that? I would think if there's no legal issue, why couldn't we do that? But
The distinction, I just want to make a distinction between those who have not yet applied and those who have applied but have a pending matter.
Yes,
If they've applied and have a pending matter, I don't foresee an issue with that unless there's another, unless you know otherwise. But if they have not yet applied, then I wouldn't want to put the cart before the horse and say, well, if you do.
No, I agree, because I
Okay.
think, they had, we gave them ample time to be able to
Correct.
apply. So if they haven't applied yet, there's of course a reason, but my thought would be, just like you said, so if they've applied and it's pending, we could approve it. And then, of course, if they did not end up giving the information by essentially the end of December, then they would have to apply as a new license.
So, and it seems like the only one that would be affected by that would be this Euroline Motors,
For class 2s.
right?
Yeah.
So, and
But then there's others.
their existing, for Euroline Motors, their existing license is going to expire at the end of December,
Yeah,
which means they're gonna have to run back in here before the end of December, otherwise they can't.
No, I'm sorry. I thought, Katie, you were, and you were asking about like all of the license that we're voting on. So I was referring to the liquor license, common victulars, and entertainment. Euroline would be, as you were saying, that they have not received an application, so they will be a new license no matter what. They can't give it to us tomorrow and expect us to process it
Okay, that was,
before the end of the year. But for example, Terrific, so we've received their application, they're just pending something on their end, but we would hopefully vote to approve
Conditioned
that.
upon that
Exactly.
coming to fruition.
got it.
I'm not very clear about CNL liquors, and I still have
No?
issue with CNL liquors.
So I did,
Why not?
I found the initial letter that we sent to CNL. That, do you want me to read what it says? Not the whole letter, but
Is it possible to just table CNL till next meeting? Can we do that?
Yeah.
Because I just feel
No,
like
I
we're
think we
missing a
just
lot of
won't. I just think
information
we won't
and clarity.
vote
and
on that tonight.
yeah, I think that's okay.
Marcy, can I ask you about Paradise Auto Sales is doing an expansion of their business? Can you explain the process they went through for the expansion of their business?
Oh, sorry.
Absolutely. They requested a special permit to increase their, the number of bays that they currently have. As you recall, they had 3 bays where they operated, did repairs and other servicing of vehicles. And they actually increased it by 2. So now, after the construction, they'll have a total of 5 bays that were approved by ZBA.
So can you just help me, and this is not a licensing thing, but it speaks to licensing, right? Because if I remember correctly, their special permits contain a lot of language about how many cars they can have parked on the parking lot over hours, how many cars can be in a state of disrepair, et cetera, because it kept on.
Absolutely.
Under zoning, this is a B1 district. Under zoning, this is a prohibited use.
Oh, my God.
It's prohibited, so they're grandfathered. I'm gonna assume they're grandfathered, which means that you can make conforming changes, but you can't make non-conforming changes. And an expansion from 3 to 5 bays is making a business that's this big, which, if it's prohibited, is non-conforming. And so I'm just, was there not any, the whole point of changing zoning and to make things prohibited was because at some point, the planning body and town meeting made the decision that having this continue, we would rather it phase out as opposed to having it be a continued use. And my guess is it's the proximity to Swampscott Road, or Swampscott Ave, right, is my guess why they did it. But if the zoning board's giving permits to expand non-conforming uses when they're prohibited uses, I'm raising this also to the town administrator, that's, we seem to struggle with these things, like we want to be business-friendly, but business-friendly just means consistent in my view. Right? We're consistent in our interpretation of bylaws for the residences and for the business. So here, you interpret business friendly as well. We gave them a permit to go do something. That's great, but it's not neighbor friendly. And zoning is both. Zoning gives you predictability, and it gives you predictability as what your neighbor's going to be able to do, right? And so it works both ways. And I point this out just because every year we struggle with these 3 properties in particular, right? And they are what they are. They're, we'll hopefully on the margins get them better, but every year, literally, this is my 8th. We have struggled
So,
on these
Peter,
properties.
excellent points. And, we met as a team to go over each and every one of these properties, the building commissioner, the director of community economic development, the police department, and town staff. I mean, we've tried to look at the zoning and really understand, where is our regulatory focus, and how do we look at the master plan? How do we really support, our responsibilities to protect neighborhoods, but to, enhance and help small businesses? We need to get better at this, and frankly, we'll continue to pull a team around these properties. This will not be a once-a-year responsibility. We're gonna meet next week. We're gonna talk more about how do we really focus on just a few properties in this town that are commercial, and really make sure that they're going to be regulated carefully.
Again, mine's not the commercial, my statement's bigger, it's for everybody, but because I don't want it to be, can I just suggest that we've got many communities now have their zoning board and planning board applications current, pending, and approved, you can access them all online now. So you can see the filings, you can see, so when you see an agenda, you can click on the agenda item, and it'll take you right into that, or whatever it is, you know, to be able to do it, because that just gives transparency and light and air to people. Right now, if any of us wanted a zoning application, we would have to ask you, right? We can't get that online, we can't find that, and I just feel as though if people got to know that these zoning applications were out there, I think sometimes neighbors hesitate to pick up the phone and call because they don't want to be difficult, right? Don't want to be that neighbor, and so I think having it online allows them to at least see it, know what's going on, so that they can't say,
We'll make that
they get the notice at home, but the notice at home just says there's a hearing, and they feel like they have to show up just to know what that's about, right? And I think just
Good
just
idea.
helps, because
Good
again,
idea.
this is, if the town wants this use, then the town can change the bylaws to allow this use. I don't have an opinion about that, but I think once we make decisions about things, and I just, you know,
I get it.
I'm gonna go back to, I know Mars, we're still looking for our senior planner, but I can't wait for our senior planner to be hired, because
I would
believe we
think
need
not
someone.
having a senior
Yeah,
planner is
no,
really a
it's
burden.
it's a burden.
on
It's a burden.
Mars's
And I
department.
think having someone that vets these applications more substantively, so they're getting memos saying, zoning board, this is an easy one for you, zoning board, it's out of your hands. The town meeting decided this for you, right? You can't actually give the relief, as opposed to make them feel as though it's a jump ball and they can decide this, or they have to decide this. Frankly, it's a relief to the zoning board, not a burden to them. It's like, we don't have a say in this, you know, next. Just may be helpful, because here I suspect we're going to see exacerbated issues on this property, because they now have 5 bays, not 3 bays, and so, good for them, hope for they're successful, but that, you know, translates ultimately into cars for sale and people coming to us, or people coming to you all and stuff, and again, I have no opinion about the use. I love that they pump my gas, I'm good with it, but.
Well, just to let you know that I recall that this was, this business in particular received a lot of support from the community when they were going through the process. They did document and that they showed that they had parking. I understand.
But that doesn't matter, Marcy,
Right.
and
No, I
that's,
know.
we are beyond the popularity contest.
Right.
We're beyond the popularity contest. We have to be, because if you're unpopular and you're living next to this, and you're just having a struggle with the person, you shouldn't be penalized because they get along with everybody else. You should have rights just to rely on the bylaw, just to rely on the bylaw. I'm not saying, like, when it's a jump ball or a decision of us, you can come say your case and we're yay or nay, right? Police decide to give you a warning or a ticket, that's based on a judgment in the field, based on their experience and what they think is gonna be the most helpful, right? But when our bylaws say, heck no, type of thing, I'm just saying people, it shouldn't be based on that, and I'm not saying the zoning board does that, but no one should feel good or better just because, hey, I'm popular, as opposed to unpopular, and there are neighbors there that have shown up here. There's a neighbor across the street from this one that I know they're okay because they've made arrangements, right? The cones are put out every day at the end of the driveway so that guy's driveway is never blocked. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens because they made peace, and that's great, but that doesn't deal with the house 2 doors down that
Right.
came last year and sat here for 2.5 hours waiting for us to get to it, who's not at peace, but he suffers a lot of the same issues. So there's no judgment here at all. It's just more about, like,
The process.
and your senior planner, man, that person's gonna have a great job.
All right, so
If we have a senior planner.
being mindful of the time in our 7 PM public hearing, so should we maybe we'll just go through these one category at a time? So, do I have a motion to approve the liquor licenses as they appear in the presentation provided, with the exception of CNL Liquors?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that package store correction for Rich Dill, which I think is how the license is written. It's just the presentation's off.
It's all 3 of those, actually. Yeah.
What do you mean all three?
Aries, Little G, and Richdale are all package store
Little-
wines and malt.
Yeah, that's what happens when you do a presentation for hours.
No,
Yeah.
trust me, there's no, like, here, there's truly no judgment, because
Yeah.
if you saw my presentations, there's a reason you're doing them and I'm not.
I feel like I redid it so.
No, it's just,
try and
we just
it
want to
the
make sure
easiest.
nothing inadvertently issues.
Yeah, no, so those are confirmed wines, and they'll offer wines and malts, and they are package stores.
Great.
So we had a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, common victualers license, I think that approve them as presented in this package.
So moved.
or do we have to say anything about pending?
Is there a second?
The pen-
I think,
Second.
yeah. Okay, further discussion.
The pending will be, as long as they've applied, we can approve them as pending, so far as they conditionally meet all the items that are pending.
Right, but don't we have to say that in our motion?
Yep, say it.
Sure.
I can't make a motion.
David, remake your motion.
Move to approve the common victualers license, including those with pending items, assuming that information is received in a timely manner.
Second?
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, entertainment licenses. I don't think there's anything pending here, so motion to approve the entertainment licenses as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So if we're meant to get a plan involving the, oh, I guess it's gonna be 4 weeks, never mind.
The plan is for enforcement.
Yeah. Okay.
So Class 2 license renewals. So this would be a motion to approve the applications for Four Seasons Motor Group and Paradise Auto Sales.
So moved.
Is there a second? Any further discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. I think that's it.
Angelica, best
Angelica,
presentation in 8
thank you so much.
I'll tell you, by far, best.
Great job.
Yeah,
And it was great to have it all consolidated, and I appreciate
no, thanks for everything. I know this is
Marzi, thank you
a
for
major amount of
putting
work.
together and whoever
Really
else behind the
appreciate it.
scenes is doing it.
I just have one final question for the.
Oh, you're gonna
physical-
ruin it. You're gonna ruin it.
No.
You're gonna go one question too far.
If you say yes to this, it's easy. Are we okay with doing electronic signatures, or would you like me to bring
Yes.
this license to be, okay?
A motion to apply electronic signatures to the applications,
To the license, yes.
to the license.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
Aye, thanks.
It's easier
Thanks so much.
for all parties.
Thank you,
involved.
Chief.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Sergeant Locke.
Thanks, Jay.
Thanks, Marzi.
Ruben, appreciate it.
All right, moving on to public hearing, joint public hearing on tax classification. If we can, it looks like everyone is a panelist. Diane?
You have an attendee with a hand up.
Yeah, I think we have a few attendees. Eric Schneider and Matt Kirchner showing as attendees.
Okay. And then
Okay.
Neil's here. Is Tasia one of the panelists?
I think, yeah, she's on the Zoom.
Is that her phone maybe? Is she on the phone maybe?
She's there. She's a panelist. She's a panelist.
Okay.
I don't know why.
Where is she?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I'm ready.
Thanks.
Okay.
All right, so I think first we have to open the public hearing.
Yeah, just tell me, so this is a public hearing by the select board, but it's a public meeting for FinCom, and just tell me what, okay.
They've been invited to just.
Okay. No, I just wanted, no,
Yeah.
I didn't, I wasn't aware of that, that's all.
They gotta call the order.
Yeah, they have to call to order, but I think that we open our public hearing first. So if there's a motion to open the public hearing on tax classification,
So moved.
is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Eric, do you want to call your meeting to order?
I called the finance committee meeting.
And you have a quorum, right, Eric?
I do have a quorum, yes.
Okay. And then, Neil, do you need to do the same? Okay, great. All right, so we're here mostly to talk about the tax classification and the shift. We've had 2 meetings where we've talked a lot about the property values. This is actually technically a vote of the select board ultimately, but as we did last year. Finance Committee and the Board of Assessors are here to provide their thoughts. I think last year we did this in a different order where we also discussed free cash, but we've already essentially decided on the free cash use from special town meeting on Monday. So the focus will be mostly on the shift to commercial and industrial properties, as well as the residential and commercial exemptions, which are basically the votes that we need to take, I believe, tonight, right, Sean?
That's correct.
So am I handing it off to
The small commercial as well. Can you say that? Sorry.
a small business exemption? Thanks.
So I think we might be helpful to start with Patrick, just to kind of go over some of the tax rate scenarios that we can step into an overview of the residential exemption option and the small business exemption option, and then we can have.
Can I just ask, do those boards have what we're looking at?
I believe so.
Yep, okay. So what's going to be on the screen is what everybody has. Okay, great. Thank you.
So based on the action taken at town meeting on Monday, we've recalculated the changes to the single-family tax bill, to condos, to multifamily bills. And Patrick has a few slides that he can present to just go over a few of those changes. We talked a little bit about the split, whether a 170 shift or a 175 shift, should be utilized. I had made a recommendation that this year it may make sense to shift up to 175, given the shift in valuations. When the town's overall equalized valuation shifts disproportionately to one property category or another, it gives us a chance to really think about, how can we mitigate that? And this year, we saw less than a 1% increase in commercial valuations. And so when we look at residential at a 15% increase or condos at a 20% increase, the size of the burden that the residential real estate tax valuation is going to pick up is significant. And based on that analysis, we have some slides that we can present just to give the board a sense of, how's that going to affect the residential taxpayers? How will that affect commercial taxpayers? So with that, Patrick.
Thanks for having me here tonight. I'm going to go.
Do you have a microphone?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you. So we have a couple slides here that highlight some of the key impacts that we've expressed that we want to see when we're considering our options for shifting the levy. Diane, next slide. So this first slide shows.
Can you just move the picture so that.
Move it to the bottom.
Yep.
Yeah. Thanks, Diane. So the first slide here shows impacts on a median basis to a couple different classes of property that we analyze. So first class of property would be the single-family, median single-family property, and that annual tax bill is expected to increase $483 using a 170% shift.
Hold on, Patrick. Eric Schneider, do you have a question right now, or?
Yeah, just to clarify, is this the median change to the single-family tax bill or the change to the median single-family?
This is the tax impact to the median valued single-family home. So when we say median, we're talking about value.
And then on the later slides, there's reference to the average, so it's the same.
Correct, yeah. It's
now. Okay.
just two different, measurements of value. So we're looking at the median valued single-family home.
Okay, thanks.
So that's a $483 projected increase with a 170% shift. Condos valued under $750,000 would see a $110 decrease in their tax bill, and condos valued above $750,000, the median from that set would see a $303 decrease in their bill. which is 1.7%. For multifamilies, so these are 2 families and 3 families, that would be an $80 decrease to the median valued property in that class. And I've also highlighted the estimated tax rate at 11.74.
So Patrick, to be clear, one thing is that the 483 is the number that I recognize that number from what we did at town meeting effectively.
Mm-hmm.
But these are the subtotals. It's obviously all the same rate. You've just subtotaled our database of properties based on condos and their values and such.
That's exactly what we did. And you'll notice, you know, obviously the median single-family bill is going up and the other 3 classes we're showing here are going down, and that's driven by value. So single-family homes have appreciated much more than these other classes in this valuation year.
Yeah. Thank you.
Next slide, Diane. Okay, we're gonna flip over to commercial. So same thing, assuming 170% shift option. The average commercial industrial property would see a $2,000 decrease in their bill, which is 5%. And the median property would see a $974 decrease, which is 7%. And the projected rate would be $21.04. Okay, and these slides are going to mirror the other ones. This is just using the more aggressive shift option. So the median single-family home has a $451 projected increase under this option, which is smaller than what you saw before by about $32. And the condos under $750,000 of value see a $128 projected decrease. Over $750,000 of value have a projected decrease of $375, and the multifamily see a projected decrease of $112. So each class sees an adjustment down in their bill on residential if we use a 175% shift. Projected tax rate 11.69. Next slide, Diane. And again, this is the commercial subset, so we're looking at the average valued commercial industrial property experiencing an $890 decrease, which is less than what you saw under 170. And for the median value property, we're projecting a $591 decrease and a projected rate of 21.66. That's all that I have, so I'm open to reactions or questions on these slides before we move on to
You did a great job with these slides.
Thank you.
Can you help us understand to the assessor or to the Board of Assessors that I'm sure it's all math, but just help me understand that the single families went up, the property type 101 went up by 15.9%, but then condominiums, which is 102, went up 20.9%. Right? But there's an increased number of parcels, obviously, with condominiums, but the average bill still went down so significantly.
I can answer your question.
Never mind, I want the treasurer to answer the question.
Unless, Dick, no, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You want me to answer it?
I want anybody to answer it.
Well, Neil, do you want to answer?
No, go ahead, go ahead.
Basically, the markets don't act consistently. And so when you're dealing with changes in value, you can have certain types of property, like single-family homes, that have a lot of very low supply, very high demand, and go up at a much higher rate than other types.
So let me just say, I'm not questioning the fact that they went up at different rates. I'm trying to understand, I'm trying to extrapolate that, and what's the head math that gets me to understand why, if single-family residential went up by 15.9%, and if you put one of the slides back on, the average the median single-family tax bill is going to go up by $400 and some odd dollars, but condominium goes up by 20.9%, but the median condo, whether it's above $750,000 or below $750,000, is decreasing. What's happening? And the answer might be in the averages, not the medians, but that's a huge swing, and just something intuitively doesn't feel right to me, and I wonder if it's because there's 21 new condominiums on your roll, but I don't think that's so I just don't understand why that swing.
That's going to skew it some, but again, I haven't prepared for this question, so I'm not totally.
Now you want the treasurer?
Yeah, nothing else. Thank you very much. And my contract just shortened from 10 to 5.
No, it's a life contract, Dick. We've already told you that. It's a life contract, my friend.
There's a lot that goes into the changes in value. And it's not just the markets, it's improvements to the properties, it's new inventory coming online. And I'm not sure exactly, I'm not clear really on what you're asking me for as far as the question goes.
Why doesn't a different type property that appreciates the same way as single family, why doesn't it have a corresponding increase to the average or median tax bill that property would have?
Well, the average and median are going to be different anyways.
So you can pick whichever one you want. Both of them are way off. So for example, here, can you just go back to a slide? Can we put that thing back up so people can look at it? Go back to the slide, which was any of the ones that we just looked at. Doesn't actually matter. I think it's the left-hand side.
Yeah, there it is. You're there.
Yep, then just go back.
So that's the single family,
That's
that's
the
the
exemptions.
residential exemption.
All right, I'm sorry I didn't make this.
Top one. Yep.
So if you just go down, right there, stop right there.
Okay.
Single-family tax bill, single-family values went up on average 15.9%.
Yep.
Condominiums on average went up 20.9%.
Yep.
But the
That's what we
single-family tax bill is going up by almost $500, but yet the condos, which have an assessed value that went up higher than single families, is still going down, going negative. And I just don't understand the math that gets there. And I'm not doubting its correctness. I'm just saying it's counterintuitive.
Took out, it's not all of the condos.
No, it is. It is all the condos. It's all the class 102. It's all the one at property value.
And it's primarily mass. There are a lot more single-family homes in town than there are condos. Just as it's a shift in the levy. It's a shift in the levy off of one type of property that is larger onto another that's smaller.
Right. So
I think more single-family houses sold overall than condos.
yeah, so that speaks to the value difference. I get that, but whatever. We can move on.
Patrick, you have a thought?
We're gonna have Patrick try this.
I'm going to try.
Okay.
Because I made that slide. So the median take one class, for example, condos under $750,000. The median value last year of that class versus this year increased 6.7%. The tax rate itself is decreasing percentage-wise more than that. So if the bill is a function of value and the tax rate,
Yep.
the tax rate is shrinking percentage-wise more than the value appreciated. So the difference is the reduction. Does that make it more
Say it
sense or
again.
less sense?
Say it one more
Say
time.
it again.
So that, if you have the median condo value for condos valued under $750,000 last year was $335,200. This year it's $357,700. That's an appreciation of 6.7%, but at a 170% shift, the tax rate is reduced versus the residential rate last year, 8.5%. So the rate is going down percentage-wise more than that median value went up.
The variance of that.
Right.
The difference is the net
The
reduction.
flip side, the median single-family home appreciated 16.3%, so that's more than the rate is being reduced. That's why there's an increase in that measurement.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Math was not my forte in college. I was a
No,
major.
it's not, you guys, this is not, don't dismiss yourself in any possible way. What you do is great. It's more just, every
It's
now and then a
confusing.
fact intuitively doesn't hit my head, and so I'm the one asking the question, Dick. You did a
The
great
one
job.
thing I've encountered in most of my professional career as an assessor is that there's constantly a shift of levy off of residential onto commercial, particularly when I'm sorry, the other way around, off commercial onto residential, particularly when you're dealing with an appreciating market for residential properties. And it's disproportionate. And that happens not only between commercial and residential, but it can happen within residential classes, between condos and residential and in multifamilies and single families. So it's a matter of the market appreciating at different rates and the levy shifting off of one property, type of property onto another, because there's such a disparity in change.
The other thing I think it's important for us to just recognize, and Dick, you can share a perspective about this. For those of us that remember the Great Recession, the 2008, 9, 10 economy, we saw commercial properties retain value while residential's plummeted.
Yep.
And so while it's frustrating to think, oh, geez, the commercials only went up less than 1% right now, the market is completely different for commercial properties than it is for residentials are the bellwether for what's happening in the economy, and they'll react a lot faster. Commercials they'll slowly react to changes in the economic trends. So there will be a time where we see an economic downturn and residential values will drop. And you can probably rest assured that commercial will sustain, and you'll shift a little bit back onto the commercial piece of the pie over a couple of years, and that's where the back and forth happens with the tax rate shift, and that's why it's important for us to think about how do we stabilize that? How do we use the town's financial position and reserves to ensure that we're tethering a little bit of that back and forth shift of the market with the town's financial reserves. We've been trying to, surgically apply a piece of the reserve here and there to balance the levy with the school, but also with some of the shifts in the market.
I have one more assessment, I'm sorry, I have one more assessment question, and then I'm going to get off assessments.
Okay.
Can you help me understand property type of 111 to 125 apartments? 19 parcel counts, we went down to 18 parcel counts, which
Yeah, we lost.
we had a negative value of 6.
White Court, we lost White Court. It went to condos.
I gotcha, so you had assessed it as apartments, got it.
We had been assessed as apartments.
I gotcha, so there's a corresponding increase in condos. Well, not a corresponding, a bigger increase actually in condos, much bigger.
One hell of a windfall.
Yep,
So
thank you.
I have to rely on what you and Patrick are saying, because I have to tell you, it's very hard to understand how values go up and on both condos and single family and multifamily, how their values go up and how their tax levy goes down. It just,
it does look a lot like smoke and mirrors and magic and playing with the bones, trying to come out with answers, which is what appraisers do, what I used to tell people appraisers do. But the markets are idiosyncratic. They don't go up together. We all think that a rising market raises all boats the same, just like the tide. And that's not the case. And so you'll have condos that may, in the early 90s, we had the tax reform law of 1986, which took all investments out of condominium projects. In the Revere market, which I was asked by Magic to look at, MGIC insures condo projects, to see what the market was doing. The market was in suspension, and it was in suspension for 2 or 3 years, where no condos sold at all. And you couldn't tell whether condos were appreciating or depreciating. You could assume they were probably going down because nobody was buying them. There was a very high supply and extraordinarily low demand. At the same time, single-family homes were increasing in value, not at a great rate, but at a better rate, because that force imposed by the legislature wasn't put on single families, just put on condo projects.
So can I add, there's a form that you create that you populate for your DOR submission that has all the classifications, and it actually walks through all the math. What's the form? Remember what form is? I can't remember which one it is.
Is that the LA form?
But anyways, I'm just saying that.
That's right.
Don't get me wrong, it's brain surgery, but it does,
Surgery,
if you can sit with it,
You put in a number.
if you can sit with it, it kind of put in something pops out, and that's what DOR ultimately is going to confirm all this stuff.
LA5.
But I'm saying there is a form, I've just forgotten it, and it's not intuitive to me anymore.
I believe it's the LA5.
what is it?
LA 5.
The LA 5. So maybe if you wouldn't mind sharing that with the board and maybe everybody after tonight so that we can look at it, because you're sharing my.
It'll help.
Curious. It's going to help. I don't know how much.
Anything that helps is good. Anything that makes you feel more comfortable with your decisions is important for us to do.
Well, I'm just saying, it's very hard to understand. I mean, I'm going to benefit on one of my properties from this, but you look at everything and you're thinking, how is it possible that a home goes up in value, two-family goes up in value, and yet the taxes are going to come down? But that's why I'm being really clear, because I don't want anybody calling me tomorrow asking me to explain this. I want them to call you guys.
Yeah, tell them to call us.
That's, yeah.
They'll be at our door on January 1st after they get their tax bill. We'll get abatement filings based on the increase in taxes on properties.
Well, these increases I don't think are really, to be honest with you, are not going to be a surprise. I think the community as a whole, we've known, we're paying for our new school. We're taking care of, our government. I honestly don't anticipate it's going to be as surprising.
Okay, that's good news. I mean,
But,
I'll have a nicer January because of that.
It doesn't mean they're not going to.
No, it doesn't mean at all that they're not going to.
My experience is, look, it's clear over the last, in the prior presentations, we've had a pretty good run of modest increase in the average single-family tax bill over the last 5 years. It really has been a historic, effort to try to, mitigate the increase. But we still have a relatively high median and average single-family tax bill. And any kind of increase is going to affect a group of property owners that are financially on a fixed income or facing, a significant increase. This is not this is a very reasonable increase for the magnitude of the investments that we're making. Certainly an investment that, the town could have been making a decade or two ago. But we're finally catching up, and we're in a good position. We've got financial reserves to help balance that. Even with this increase over the last 5 years, the average increase is a little over $80 if you take into consideration all of those years that we didn't have an increase in the average single-family tax bill.
So I have a question about the shift in our ability to shift. I emailed about this today, but I still don't quite understand it, because I think Peter asked about it when we first met a couple of meetings ago. But so last year, my recollection is we could not shift more than 170. And then this year, it seems like we are able to, but the way I understand it in a very simple way is that I thought that was a contingent on the residential, maybe it's not the value, but the percentage of the residential, I'm not going to use the right terminology, but basically proportionally what the residential was paying compared to commercial, and it seems like proportionally it's more, and so that's counter to how I understood it. I thought if residents were more, then you could not shift as much, and so it's really like totally self-serving. But I don't understand how we're able to shift this year, and we weren't able to shift more last year. That doesn't make sense to me.
The one that Tony Rashes had me print out?
I have it on my computer.
Okay.
And again, it's not that I don't trust
The
that we
question was
can't.
posed to me last night.
Yeah.
And I emailed Steve Sullivan, who's our rep for local assessments, and asked him who our contact was, because I'm new to this. The last contact I had was Maura O'Neill, and that was 7 years ago, and she's retired. So I found out that who our contact was for the Division of Local Services, but she's on vacation until January, or away until January on something. And so I talked to Tony Rashes, who's the head of the department, who I know fairly well. And he said that he had me go through the form with him, and he said because we are not above, and I really want to look at the form because I'm not sure. But he said because we're not above where we were, whoops, here we go. I am looking at the Department of Revenue form regarding the split of the rate. He said the lowest historical residential percentage since for the first certification or the last certification was 87.0165%. And this year, because our rate at 1.7 would be 87,889.91.
Say it again, say that.
87.8891%.
Or above the minimum.
We're above the minimum, so we can shift down, we can shift up to the 1.75.
That's because, you know, commercial, the burden on commercial is shifting to residential. And so,
Right.
We've been able to, like, over the last few years, we've been actually reducing the.
Yeah, so the fact that commercial went down
Is why
actually
we
is
can-
allowing us to put more on commercial. If
Right.
commercial had gone up,
that's what
well, disproportionately.
Right.
Whatever that means at this point. But that's, again, totally counterintuitive.
I think I understand it enough.
Just turn your computer
I'll ask
upside
the same
down,
question.
and it'll make perfect
I'm
sense.
sure it'll disappear, but thanks. I appreciate it.
That's no problem.
Patrick, when you're putting these slides together, things that would be really helpful would be to show what the tax burden is per 1,000 or per 100,000 versus median and average. I mean, if you put median average, that's fine, but if you could also put either 1,000 or 100,000, so people could just sit and calculate on their own.
Yeah, I would say the slides did have the tax rate, which is per 1,000, so that could, the estimated
Yeah.
tax rate, so that
Got
could
it.
be used to make a
Okay,
projection.
perfect.
Okay.
Okay. Next slide.
You want your slide?
Yeah, my slide. And my first slide, I think it's that, the effects of the shift in the individual tax bill for commercial and residential properties. And this is, I'm dealing with averages here, so we're switching point of reference. That's the
No, that's not.
residential exemption.
That's not the one, you have the one he wants on the screen behind it. No, she. No, go to screen share first. And then right there, nope, go the other way to the right. I think it's that one right there. I think so.
No, that was already
That's
what
already
went
done.
over.
It's this one, right, the one we did this morning?
It's
I'm just coming out of this.
this one right here. I think I set it up to you this afternoon.
This is all I got.
Oh, okay.
Is it in that
Is
packet?
it in that package?
Bless you.
Nope. 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 Nope.
I don't think it's in that one, Diane.
You want to tell us about it?
Sure, I can tell you about it. I looked at Whole Foods and what was happening to Whole Foods. It's one of the biggest retailers in town, one of the biggest commercial buildings we have in town. And with a 170 shift, the taxes compared from last year to this year would be $13,506.37 less. And that's the shift that's occurring.
At 170 or 175?
170.
170. At 175, the shift would be a negative $2,636.65. So there would be less of a benefit,
Right.
okay? And if we do that with the residential properties, with the average single-family home, the increase would be $373.73 for 1.7, and the increase would be $339.59 for 1.75. So it would benefit the residential properties in that they would be paying less in taxes. It'll have less of an increase in
Residential,
taxes,
not
right.
single family.
Less of an, you're right. I didn't anticipate your question this afternoon, so I didn't do anything with condos at all.
That's okay. Well, condos are in that number.
But they're in, yeah.
And I did an analysis, and it's off-screen, and I had it with me, I just wanted to reference it. If we go with a 175% shift, I looked at about 28 commercial properties in town randomly. 9 would increase between $3.34 per year in taxes and $1,945.16 in taxes, high to low. And a vast majority, the other 19 would decrease in taxes. And I'm just looking down the line here. Decrease would be as little as $262.50 and as great as $22,752.35. So you're dealing with a shift. You're dealing with a shift off of commercial onto residential. And I think the point here is to make it as painless as possible for the residential properties. That's why we're presenting this, and that's why we're bringing this up at this juncture.
And that scenario you just gave, was that when you said that there are 9 that would have that, $3 increase to
1,900.
1,900? That's with the 175 shift, or with
It's 175.
175?
I was scribbling notes when I was waiting to come on, and I was just playing with those figures. I didn't look at the 1.7. I can do the 1.7.
No, that's just helpful to understand.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So it wouldn't be every commercial property would be paying less. Some would be paying a nominal amount more.
And actually, interestingly enough, service stations went up more in taxes than supermarkets and malls, shopping centers. I don't know why. No, it's against the market.
Wait, you said supermarkets more than malls?
No,
What? Service
Gas
stations.
stations went up more than supermarkets and malls.
I wonder if the price of gas affects the overall profit margin.
That was post this. That happened this year, not last.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So I think,
That would be affected by this year's taxation.
Naomi, you have a question?
Yes. Just the way we separated out the single-family homes from the condos, has there been some analysis on the small businesses versus the large ones like the supermarkets? Like I'm thinking of the smaller businesses along Humphrey Street and what their burden is.
It's difficult along Humphrey Street because most of those businesses are in mixed-use buildings. And so it gets a little bit more convoluted because you're dealing with a residential factor and you're dealing with a commercial factor on a weighted. One part of the building is going to have more residential and less commercial and vice versa. I did look at the new restaurant, used to be a Vietnam restaurant near where I live. Let me see if I can just pull that up.
Taitani?
No. They're in a mixed-use building, so I couldn't do that.
Oh, the Vietnamese.
Oh, they have very good Thai food. So I think it's 286 Humphrey Street. Because I'm at 432. Okay, so their taxes are going to increase slightly, $370.64.
And are they a standalone?
They're a standalone.
So would
It's
they?
that small Vietnamese restaurant that's just been purchased and been converted to more of a pastry and mixed.
That's friends.
That's friends.
That's friends, right, thank
Right,
you.
and then there would also, because it's a standalone, would they also benefit under the business exemption?
The small business exemption, if they have fewer than 10 employees, and let me look here. Their assessments under it have to be assessed less than $1 million in value and have fewer than 10 employees. And then they would get, if they were worth $1 million, they would get the great exemption of 10%, which would give them about $2,166 a year in shift of levy off of their property, a savings. It's not much. It's just 10%.
Then that potentially could shift an additional burden on another small business that has a triple net lease and another building, and it's really hard for us to get a sense of whether or not that really is gonna have a meaningful benefit for those properties.
The
that
thing is,
ultimately-
it goes to the owner.
Yep.
And whether the owner decides to pass it through to the tenant or not is another issue. The owner may say, oh, this is good for me, I'm keeping it all for myself.
Well, if it's a triple net, it would.
If it's a triple net, it gets passed through automatically.
Right.
But sometimes they're gross leases. And so they don't have that, they don't have that capacity. The landlord gets all the benefit,
Or all the burden.
all the burden. Yeah. Yep, oh, yeah. You know commercial properties. I used to appraise them, so I know them fairly well myself.
Which would mean that the business necessarily isn't taking the hit, the landlord is taking the hit,
Right, right,
to answer Naomi's question.
yep. And I don't know whether these people own their building or not. I think they might. I know it's sold,
The Zest friends,
yeah.
they own it.
They own it, assessed for 705, so they would qualify for the small business.
Great.
Yep.
Any other questions from folks on Zoom?
Just some historical context. I mean,
I thought they were watching us.
Neil, you said we kind of do this every year, and then last year we're kind of limited, but do we have any history of kind of going back and forth just based on what happens in the market? Is that a standard thing that we do, the 170 or 175? And are we limited to 175? I thought I heard that, but I wasn't sure.
That is the max that you can shift to. You can't go above 175.
Okay.
And so that's kind of a ceiling. And you can, if it's appropriate, you can always shift it, you can always bring it down. Shift it
Based
back.
on historic recollection, I think, prior to 5 years ago, I think the town had kept it at a 175 shift for years.
Long time.
In a long time. So, I know we changed it a few years ago, and we wanted to see if there were small businesses that really would benefit. We did reach out to a number of small businesses, ask them to apply or try to, get some support for this shift, and we really heard very little from the business community.
So Sean, you're saying we made a conscious decision a few years ago to reduce the burden, in theory, on businesses, and it hasn't necessarily played out to give the desired effect. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I don't think it has, and it's the reason why I'm recommending we move back up to the 175. I think it's more important for us to really invest in community and economic development and really think about ways that we can really help small businesses by offering more advocacy and more support for these small businesses, connecting them to the Enterprise Center over at Salem State, really working with them to really, help them get more support from our Community and Economic Development Office. Unfortunately, I worry that, while our intentions to help a few of these businesses are superlative, we may unintendedly hurt a few businesses as well. We're shifting a burden to other business. We're not just saving a business, a few dollars. We're shifting that within the category of property, commercial properties, and that could unintentionally harm another struggling small business. I think we have to just be mindful of that, and I'd prefer to cause no harm and do our best to really give them all a little bit of support.
Okay. Are we, I guess my question on this is, what are we missing? Like, it seems pretty obvious. I think going to a 175 shift with the current conditions seem like an obvious choice to me this year, so I don't know if we're missing anything. We're gonna do all of our votes after we close this hearing, so we wouldn't vote on it now, but we can move on to the exemptions if people want.
Sounds good.
Yep.
Okay. You can start with the residential exemption. That's that beautiful house. Modest dwelling. Okay. You have to consider two options tonight. Past the rate and setting the rate, you need to consider the residential exemption. This is required for every classification hearing, is you have to consider these exemptions. Residential exemption option, residential exemption may be granted up to 35% of a discount on the average property. The exemption is paid for by shifting a higher burden onto non-owner occupied and my slide ended prematurely, and onto the higher end properties in town. Anything above the average gets an increase in taxation, and anything below the average gets a decrease, and anything that's non-owner occupied always gets an increase. The next slide, I've done a breakdown of the shift, and if you grant a 35% exemption, which is the high end, it can be anything from, like 5% up to 35%. It's the town's discretion. The residential rate would, which is $12.83, would increase to $19.74. And the values are recalculated after with the exemption and the new rate applied. And so for a property that's assessed for $210,000, with value with the exemption, without the exemption, I'm sorry, the wrong column, $1,522, and I'm sorry, no, it's the value with the exemption is $1,522, and without the exemption is $2,694.30. And so the change in taxation would be $2,664.26. So that would be at the low end. At the high end, a property worth $1,240,000 would have, with the exemption, would be taxed at, would be valued at $1,031,522. Without the exemption, it would be $15,909, and with the exemption would be $20,362.24, or increase in taxation of $4,453.04.
Whoa.
That was a groan or
Yeah.
a question?
Yes.
That's not good.
No, that's not good. The property that's valued at an average value would have no change. And so there's a gradual increase as you go up to the higher end of the scale, and a gradual decrease as you go down the lower end of the scale. The towns, and the towns that are most interested in doing this tend to be resort communities where you have a lot of non-owner occupied homes that are seasonally occupied, and a lot of communities that are very heavy with multifamily dwellings, apartment buildings, and 3, 4, 6 family dwellings. And so the Cape Cod communities or vacation communities that currently have a residential extension, Barnstable, Mashpee, Nantucket, Oak Bluffs, Provincetown, Tisbury, and Truro. And the ones that are non-vacation-based communities that have the exemption are Boston, Brookline, Cambridge, Chelsea, Everett, Malden, Somerville, Waltham, and Watertown. Sorry, I mispronounced that. So it's whether you feel that Swampscott is like one of those communities. Except
we haven't done it.
Pardon?
We've never done it.
No community that I've ever worked in has done it, and I was in Belmont, which is right in between Cambridge and Waltham.
Right.
And, we're all constantly getting flack about, well, their taxes are so down, and we had a lot of people moving out of Belmont into Waltham and Cambridge because the taxes were cheaper.
Any questions on that from anyone on Zoom either? Anyone on Zoom have a question about that?
Yeah, I had a couple questions.
Okay.
So this shows the maximum exemption. But what would it be if it were like 5% or I mean, does it have to be around 5 numbers? Could it be, I mean.
I was afraid somebody was going to ask that question. And I quite frankly didn't do the calculations.
But it's gonna be.
It's going to be a trifling amount.
It's proportioning.
Yeah.
It's proportionate though, so you can take 1/7 of the differential.
Right. Because I know there's been a lot of talk about being cognizant of, you know, the inflationary environment that we're in, and it seemed like this would maybe be one way to shift some of the burden, and you can only use the value of the property as a proxy, but shifting it from a little bit from the lower valued properties to the higher valued properties. And I mean, it's a policy point, but it's just a thought.
We have looked at it over the last few years, and it, you know, it really, when you look at just the number of properties that are above, you know, the median, and the number of properties that will benefit, it would create quite a stratification in Swampscott. And the folks that are right, you know, in the middle, that are just slightly above, are gonna see a significant increase. And that's really where we have to, you know, understand just how impactful it could be. Yes, it's worth understanding, but it could really create quite a tale of two communities in Swampscott. And, you know, I think it's the reason why, you know, so few communities in the Commonwealth actually select this.
But, so is this done on average or median?
Average.
So why is 595, it's because it's residential average?
That's because I did all residential
I'm
properties.
mixing single family and all residential, gotcha, okay. I will say this as the one 3 years ago that asked us to start looking at this. I think in many respects there are people in Swampscott that say we already do live in two different communities. And I think in a community that's has such tremendous economic disparity on the spectrum, every year we keep on saying, well, that would be tough for someone to have an increase of $2,700, but we speak so eloquently about relieving the tax burden on people, and I mean, I don't know. At some point, it's not 0 or 35; it's anything in between percentage. And at some point, it might be interesting to just get into the granular of the properties, not the people, the properties. For the record, I'm above the average, so I would be taxing myself here. But it's just interesting. I think it's just interesting. I mean, I think as though we have very few tools for tax relief. For senior citizens, there's other relief tools. So if they're land rich and cash poor, there's other tools that might be able to help them. But I'm just saying, I'm not saying do anything tonight. We haven't gotten nearly as granular in the detail. I just say I wouldn't discount it as, I wouldn't just say it creates two different communities. I believe to many people in this town, we do live in two totally different economic worlds. And that is increasing. That's not decreasing. When I raised it 3 years ago, it was less, you know, spread as it is now. It's more dramatic, right? The rich are richer and the poor are poorer demographically if you look at our community over the last decade.
Peter, I really appreciate, you know, the sentiment here about trying to make Swampscott more affordable and trying to really understand, you know, what makes it really almost impossible for folks on fixed incomes to really continue to enjoy a quality of life that, you know, is ever more difficult. So given the complexities of this year's tax levy with the new projects that we're taking on, I do think it's worth us studying this more and having more conversations, perhaps as part of the Land Use Board Summit or perhaps as part of a financial summit that really gives us a focus on how can we, you know, become more affordable for some residents, and where do we really focus on affordable housing strategies. I just think right now we need a little bit more of a runway to have this conversation and give everybody a sense of how impactful this can be, both positively and perhaps not so positively in terms of how other properties might have to carry a much more significant financial burden.
Yeah, I think that's the suggestion is.
Agree. Then,
Yeah.
like, let's not start this
We're not
conversation
doing it
a month
tonight.
ahead of time.
Yeah.
You come to us 6 months ahead of time and
Right.
say, we're looking ahead and this is what it is.
And
Then we can have that conversation.
to Peter's point,
Totally
not,
agree that we're not.
not the difference between Eric's question, you know, not just looking at nothing and the max.
Yep.
And then we can
The other,
into it.
other piece of the apple that isn't looked at in this, I don't want to interject myself too much, but the other thing I think that should be looked at are the individual exemptions, senior exemptions, blind exemptions. Because particularly the senior exemptions based on income are so draconian and so minimalist that a lot of people don't qualify. And I think if I would encourage discussion with the legislators to see if that can be changed and amended and increased, because it's been in those levels for a long time. And there doesn't seem to be any movement in the direction that would favor the seniors. I'm a senior, but I can afford Swampscott, luckily. But at the same time, I think it's something worth considering. We do have people coming into our office every day this time of year who probably should qualify for an exemption, but they just earn too much money, they get too much in their retirement, and they don't qualify. And yet they're still living hand to mouth.
Yeah. Great point. Eric, thanks for raising that.
Any other questions? I can't see if people are raising their hands. If you can unmute yourself and you have a question, you can go ahead. If not, we can move on to commercial if there's not more to speak on this. All right, moving on.
Okay. Next slide, small business exemption. Next slide. Okay. Small commercial exemption is an exemption that's a flat exemption. It's 10%, up to 10% of value on commercial properties, and it shifts the levy within the commercial classification, 300, 400 classification properties. The annual, it's actually just 300, I'm sorry, class 300. Annual employment for everybody in the building, every company in the building must be fewer than 10 employees. And so if you have a strip mall and that has 10 tenants and 9 tenants are under 10 employees and one has 11, discount's gone. The annual, and then the property must be worth less than $1 million is the ceiling on it. And so the levy shifted, I said that already. On to the next slide. It's only granted to commercial buildings that house businesses with fewer than 10 employees. That's a drawback. If one tenant, and I've said that before, and then I said this initially, the exemption goes to the building owner, not necessarily the tenants. So if it's not a triple net or a net rent, there may be, in fact, no benefit to the tenants. So again, if you're thinking you're benefiting mom and pops, this may not really benefit them in the way you want it to. The exemption maxes out at 10%, I've said that. And 2 years ago, I didn't do the math this year, but only 27 buildings would technically qualify for this type of exemption in town. Ben did the breakdown of the buildings in those at that juncture, and the file got corrupted, and I couldn't fix it this afternoon. As much as I had a full head of hair at the beginning of the afternoon. Okay, and that's basically it on the small commercial exemption. Again, just to interject, if there's some way we could figure out a local option that was different than this and better, it would be beneficial to the small companies in town and the mom and pops. But this really isn't that, in my mind. And I've given this speech over a 21-year period. This will be my 21st time, I think. It just doesn't, in my mind, make sense. Now, the towns that offer a small commercial exemption. There are 4 in Norfolk County, 3 in Middlesex, 3 in Bristol, 1 in Worcester, 1 in Franklin, and 1 in Berkshire. As for a total, I think, of 13. 4% communities have adopted the small commercial exemption. And I think my sense is a lot of the communities have a very small commercial base, probably have a lot of freestanding commercial buildings where that's an easier thing to apply and where it makes more sense.
Questions about that? Anyone on Zoom have a question, comment? All right. Is that that's the end of the
That's it.
end?
That's all I got.
Okay, maybe if we stop sharing. So, if people on Zoom, FinCom, or Board of Assessors have anything else, don't have anything else to add, then you can adjourn your meetings, and then we can close the hearing, and then we can discuss and vote on all of the matters that we need to vote on.
Ask your motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Okay, Eric?
Can I get a motion?
Second.
Who made the motion? I didn't get it.
Nobody.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Thank you. Second, please.
Second.
Naomi?
Yep.
Sumit?
Yes.
Eric?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us. I know it's been a busy couple months, and especially the last couple weeks, so I really appreciate you coming after a special town meeting on Monday. Thanks very much.
No problem. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Good night. Thank you.
So with that, I think we need a motion to close our hearing. I don't see, Diana, can you just put up the Zoom?
Yep, meeting.
If there are any comments from the from attendees before we close the public hearing? Not seeing any. All right, is there a motion to close the public hearing? Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so that brings us to discussing what we just discussed. So we have the shift and the residential exemption and the small commercial exemption. I think it seems I favor the shift to 175, and I would favor not adopting either of the exemptions, which is similar to what we did last year, except for the shift is different.
Yeah, I agree with you, Neil.
My only concern is the small business exemption. Do you happen to know how many people actually took advantage of that last year, Sean?
No, we had no.
We didn't have it, did we?
Yeah.
No
We
one?
did not have.
I think it was 2
didn't
years
have
ago
it.
you adopted it.
What are you talking
and
about?
Nobody
Wait,
took it.
did we have it?
No one, yes, we've had it.
Yeah,
This
we
is-
had it. We have had no businesses take.
Yeah, so it's not
advantage.
the small business, I mean, I'll just give my take, the small business one, small commercial, that's an easy decision. This, going back to 175 is the hard one, because if you're concerned about small businesses, they're gonna be more impacted in total by the shift back to 175 than 17, than the small commercial would have ever touched, because that's just 28 parcels, maybe qualify.
27 parcels.
27 parcels
Right.
qualify, whereas you're taking tax, not personalizing, we would be taking tax savings away from every commercial,
Right.
big and small, so that's the bigger,
It seems that the tools that we have at our disposal, I mean, certainly the small commercial exemption, is something, but it might not go to these small businesses. The only thing that, the tools that we have in our toolbox, it would appear to me, would be the fees that are charged. So if there was some fee relief, that would get funds directly in the pockets of these small business owners rather than in the landlord. The landlord could simply just suck up this small business exemption as small as it is.
Right, but I'm talking about the 27 properties that do qualify for it. Out of those 27 properties that did qualify, how many actually did apply?
0.
Oh,
And it was after an effort to promote it, too. I think, Sean, you told me this afternoon that Ben had gone out to promote it.
Ben did, but also Marcy has gone and reached out and tried to encourage.
nobody-
But you have to apply for it, and it's another burden, it's another, level of effort to document, filings. And again, when we think about ways to help small businesses, it might be more important for us to really look at ways that we could budget for things that would help enhance the viability of some of our small businesses, as opposed to, taking a blunt instrument with our tax setting policy and trying to apply that.
Gotcha. So my concern with going in the first year, the first time that we have a bigger number going to the residential side, we are using the only tool we have to shift back to the residential. We still have free cash, we still have reserves, and town meeting generously shared those and used those. In future years, we may not have those numbers to be able to offset tax rate, but we'll have already used this split, right? Whereas this year, we went to town meeting and appropriated a lot of money to offset tax rate. And so I'm just saying, next year, we may not have that much money to offset tax rate, or the year after, we may not have that much money to offset tax rate, and you're not gonna have, you'll be at 175, so you'll already have stressed that, so we can't do it in the future. So I'm just, much like when we were talking about the guidelines, in the first year that we are dealing with something like this, it doesn't seem we're throwing all the tools back to just taking care of the residential rate. We're gonna get rid of the small commercial, we're gonna go to 175, and we're also very robustly subsidizing the tax rate with free cash and stabilization. I'm just saying it, I'm not, it's a very subjective thing, it's just that that's all our tools, we have no more tools.
But I think, so help me understand, the tool would still exist next, we could stay at,
No.
we don't know.
You'd stay at 175.
stay at
Right, but you can never better your position from that. So meaning, if next year, let's just hypothetically said, next year you didn't have as much free cash or reserves to put towards the tax rate, let's assume same dollars denotes here, same thing, right? And we were facing the same increases, but let's just say we didn't have as much free cash available for us to subsidize, to offset, shall we say, the tax rate, right? This year, we're using both that additional free cash and we're using the split change to 175 to help the residents. Next year, we're gonna have, the split change will already have happened, so it's not gonna be additional relief. I'm just saying that it's a tool that
But I guess I just don't see it as a parallel to the reserves, because it's there.
No.
The reserves.
It's there, but this year, in next year, you're gonna, if you need more, look, I think this year's was small compared to next year's. Let me be clear what I think is gonna happen with taxes, right? We signed the richest contract that the town's done in a decade. We are buying properties, which is awesome, great stuff, right? But next year's discussion is going to be bigger than.
Let's be clear, that contract we signed just recently is less than.
No, I don't want to date the contract. I want to say that the pressure's on your budget, because you've been doing zero-based budgeting, and it'll be greater and greater each year, and the amount of free cash that we have to subsidize is going down.
It is.
And the amount of debt service that we're putting in the budget for land, for schools and whatnot, it is what it is.
Those are the realities.
No, it's reality, but I'm just saying next year's number is going to be bigger than this year's. The median increase of single-family tax bill is going to be bigger next year. Hard stop. Than this, right? And so, I'm just,
Neil, to your point, the benefit is still there next year. 'Cause
it is benefit.
The benefit's still there, but using the benefit this year instead of next year means we can't we can't reserve the benefit for a year that's going to potentially hurt more.
I have to be honest, I don't support reserving a benefit for the future, not knowing what the future is gonna have, because we do have our reserves, we do have our capital stabilization, our general stabilization, and if we have to, we could turn around and change some of our policies and make adjustments into our stabilization accounts. I think for something like this, we were at 175 for a very long time, and I don't see any problem with going back to the 175. And then we do have two tools. Number one is, we could tighten up the budget, if we have to tighten up the budget, we could go back and use some of our reserves. There are things that we can do.
So, Richard, is there any risk that we will next year go below our lowest residential factor?
There's always that risk.
Right, so that's the other consideration here, right? Next year, DOR can go back and say, you have to do 1.7.
But so it might not exist.
Yeah, it just puts it
Right.
1.71 or 1.72
Right.
or 1.69 or 1.68, right? And I don't put that risk to be huge, but it's definitely a risk.
Look, this is the board's prerogative. You've got a lot of good points to consider. We still have an inflationary economy. We still have to think about, other impacts right now that are affecting people. And
Sean, we know that.
I know,
but we're not, I appreciate what you're saying. We're having a discussion as a board to just try and figure out our own views.
I got
We
you.
hear you on the policy, we really do, and you're spot on with that. But if that being said, we could have used more free cash last night. I mean, if you want to follow that same policy, we reserved a benefit.
Understood.
Right.
We reserved about $10 million of benefits technically.
I made the same
Because we
argument
made,
last night.
no, well, you've been consistent with that. I'm just pointing it out, and again, I'm not hardlined on any of this. Like, I'm not feeling so intensely either way. I'm just airing it out.
Sure.
Because I do think fiscal year 24, fiscal year 25, I believe we're on a trajectory that is more like other communities, right? We haven't been like other communities because we've been able to take full advantage of the zero-based budgeting and getting our budget to exactly where it needed to be. We were very smart with contracts. We've just spent money extremely well, and we've reserved. And so we have reserves, great. But the reality is we are like other communities at the end of the day, right? We're not that different.
Well, there's one thing that frankly, nobody likes to talk about that I've said a few times in a number of our presentations, and that's, we're not going to cut our way out of this problem. You're gonna have to grow your way out of this problem. And until Swampscott kind of recognizes that Vinnon Square can't just be a strip mall from the 1950s, and, Humphrey Street just can't be, underdeveloped. Your zoning calls for a lot, and we're missing opportunities. And so, from my perspective, look, the pressure will cause us to face reality. Put some pressure on Swampscott and see what can happen. This is a challenge, but it's also an opportunity. And for me, I'm not dissuaded by it. I think Swampscott is a remarkable place, but reality is going to force us to think hard about, where we apply our attention. It probably isn't going to be in everybody's best interest to just look at solving this problem by cutting this budget.
No, I think it's right.
No, and I appreciate the point, I mean, I had said sort of like, well, I don't know what I'm missing, right? So I appreciate that that's something I was missing and not considering.
Dick gave us great information. The Whole Foods example, to me, though, is the worst example of this, right? Because, no.
I did.
But to me, it's the actual worst, it's the worst example. I think what they should do is take an owner-occupied building that is operated by a new restaurant in our town and tell me what the shift differential does.
Yep.
For them.
I asked him to
And I
get
think
that
what we're
too.
gonna see, well, but I'm not, we are where we are. That wasn't my point, Sean. My point is, we would see I'm making up a number, a $300 less tax savings for them.
Right.
And what does that $300 mean to them versus the $11,000 to Whole Foods?
Right.
I don't care, you know what I mean? So Whole Foods not where my sensitivity is, and that was the only point I was just making to you, which is every commercial property is going to be impacted by the shift in negative. So every single small business is getting impacted by the shift change back to 175, right? Whereas the small commercial 28 had the possibility. Instead, everyone's going to get hit. And that's what I don't fully appreciate what that looks like because we haven't seen the breakdown to know exactly what that means. But every single commercial property, big and small, is going to get hit by this. And I know you all know that. I'm just saying, I'm having problems digesting that.
Yeah.
But
Well-
let's talk about the growing of the pie, the expansion of the pie. I think that's important.
The residential.
And residential and commercial. So this, it's going to be mixed use in Vinnon Square. It's going to be residential, it's going to be commercial. What message are we sending to commercial real estate investors and developers and folks that are gonna come in if we're shifting to 175? the economics may not work for them to come in.
I think, you know, I think we can send a message that shows them that we have the strength of financial prudence and we're making careful investments. We grow the budget in a very, you know, tight manner. We look at every nickel and dime and, you know, we mean business. And so we're gonna have to look at, you know, do we have the right zoning for, you know, small businesses that want to invest on Humphrey Street? Do we have the right investment zoning for Vinnon Square? I mean, there's a lot of good conversations that we could have that would really signal to small businesses that we can be a wonderful community to invest in. We've got liquor licenses. We've got the ability to kind of incentivize some
but we also have
significant opportunities.
We're also well over the tax burden for the commercial tax base, the commercial property owners is well in excess of Essex County. So why would someone who's looking to do something in Essex, looking to build in Essex, come to Swampscott?
Well, if you look at, hold on a minute, if you look at our average income, if you look at how we spend money, if you look at our traffic patterns, there's so many reasons where a business wants to be here. And I don't think that the tax rate is as big a burden when somebody's looking at moving in here. You look at Whole Foods, Stop and Shop, you look at all of them, they're here for a specific reason.
But there are literally commercial landlords that are receiving less money today than they were 30 years ago.
Yeah, their rent is less per foot than it was 20 years ago because any increase in real estate taxes, $1 less they're going to pay and someone's going to get in rent. And so I hear what you're saying. There are some core groups that will come here, but we're hampered by the fact that one half of our radius is the Atlantic Ocean, right? So retail, our density, while we're dense within our own thing, from the retail perspective, we don't have good density, right? Because
fish don't
one
shop.
half, exactly, fish don't shop, right? And so that's why Linfield is different.
Right.
Because Linfield's five
They have a big
mile
strip.
radius, right? Their 5 mile radius
Right,
is
interstate access.
Right.
and so, but the truth is our commercial base hasn't increased. So as desirable as we may think it is for our purposes, it just hasn't happened, and I don't think it's zoning. To be honest with you, I think we can make things easier and better, stuff like that, but I'm just saying that there's some realities of what commercial we're gonna be getting here. You know, I do say that without trying to be dour about the future. I do believe, I agree with you about revenue you and I have been on the same page since day one on that. So anyways, going back to this tax thing, I feel the answer that I would have given you, David, to your question is what message would have been? It would have been the message is the same headline that so many communities get stuck with. We're at the highest possible split for commercial. That's the headline. And you don't get past the headline, right? And I know it's just a headline. At 1.7, we were still pretty damn close to it, but still we were showing that we were trying to do something because it is true. Every $1 of taxes that someone pays is $1 less in rent they pay. Because that's just the market. The market is net dollars, like over gross dollars. What's the total amount you'll pay per month to occupy this space? Whether it's rent or real estate taxes, it doesn't matter to the tenant. They're only going to pay so much. So the landlord ultimately bounces out. And I think if, you know, Vinnon Mall were here now, they'd say 20 years ago I was getting a per square rent greater than the per square rent I get today, because there's so many reasons. But one of the reasons is where taxes are relative to where they were. So I mean, it's just a reality. It's not. We're not on like so many communities. It's just our community. I love this discussion. This is great. This is honestly, every year we have the tax discussion. It's the best discussion of the year.
It's your favorite discussion?
No, it's the best one because it actually it touches, even though we're not talking about everything we talk about during the year right now, it touches upon every single thing that we do during the year. Right? And it's the biggest policy decision we make.
Look, what impresses me about the board's conversations at this juncture is that you've made decisions in the past to drop the rate from 1.75 to 1.65 because you really do care about your small businesses, and you've demonstrated time and time again and you know, throughout the year that you want to make sure these small businesses can survive and thrive. There will be opportunities to go up and down, and you know, hopefully in future discussions, you know, boards will be as diligent about, you know, thinking critically about these decisions because it does have a meaningful impact on both residential and small businesses.
So we need a motion. It has to be read. You know, it's certain language. I don't know if Diane has the slide. And we can do it with the exemptions, or we can take these one at a time. I don't know if the exemption conversation's a long one or not.
Hey, I'm going to do the easy ones. I move that the board choose not to adopt the residential exemption for fiscal year. This says 2019. I assume we mean fiscal year 2023.
Yeah.
Second.
Any further discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, the second one, number 3 I'll do. I move that the board not adopt the small commercial exemption for fiscal year 2023.
Second.
Any further discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
I'm out.
Good night, everyone.
Peter, the low-hanging fruit.
I did. That's true leadership.
I'll move that the board select the residential factor of 0.9480, a CIP shift of 170 for the fiscal year 2023 tax levy. And in order to effect this policy, the board hereby authorizes Sean Fitzgerald, Town Administrator, to electronically sign on behalf of the Board of Selectmen on the Massachusetts Department of Revenue's gateway system.
Wait, can you say that again? Because
He chose number 1.
He chose
Okay.
170
Saying the
shift.
170 shift.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
All right, further discussion. So, I mean, I favor the 175 shift, so
I'm in favor of
I'll
175.
vote no on that motion.
Wait.
Mr.
Are we
Chair, you got to
voting?
call people.
Yeah, we have to.
Vote here.
Yes. Are we voting or are you?
Yes, we're voting.
Well, if we're,
No,
wait,
I
if we're, are we
thought-
still in discussion?
well, we're having further
Are we having
discussion.
You can discuss
Are we
it
still
as
in
much as you
discussion?
want. Yes.
Motion
Katie,
made,
so
seconded, discussion.
I'm, personally, I'm good with 175. I'm hearing Neil say 175,
Yeah,
and I'm seeing you squirm around in your chair. So I'm just wondering, should we be having a conversation of trying to get to the middle there?
David, do you want to change your motion?
It's not gonna help.
No.
Okay. So why don't you see how the vote goes on this one, and then
Yeah,
see
let's
if it's
just
on the
take the
motion.
vote. I think I.
Says the squirming person.
Okay.
So I'd never define
Oh,
myself.
you mean the vote for Dave?
Yeah, that's.
David's motion
David
for
hasn't-
170.
David hasn't taken his motion off the table.
Okay,
And you
so,
seconded it.
I seconded it.
so no more discussion about the motion.
So,
No, I don't need.
Okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Opposed.
All right.
Okay, motion passes. So it's set at 170.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Dick.
That was one of the more intriguing
Patrick.
and interesting discussions I've heard on the rate, actually.
Thanks, Patrick. You guys, the financial team and Dick and everybody, this is the presentation stuff leading to last night, getting us through last night. People is like, well, wow, things went really easy last night, and it's preparation. And so you guys,
Yeah, and Dick just stepping in new, less than three months.
and this is like
You know?
3 months into a 25-year contract.
You got the first one out of your way.
Imagine how good he's going to be, let's say, in year 18.
I'm 75 now, God, 25 years.
We embrace age, and I do more and more every year.
Yeah.
Every year I
As good
embrace
as
it
they
more
get,
and more.
Really, you've been
Awesome.
terrific.
Yeah, no, Dick's done an outstanding
Totally
job
awesome.
stepping in for the last
Thank
3
you very
months.
much. It's been a pleasure at times,
Yeah.
Always.
always.
I'd like to say
Thank you.
thank you to the Board of Assessors. So I am the liaison, and you guys really worked really hard, and I appreciated everything you did, and the back and forths and the pushing back to
Yep.
make sure that things were, done the best they could be done.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Neil.
Enjoy,
All right,
Dick.
We're going to get an email.
all right, one more item.
Patrick will send you the forms today.
Yeah, they can-
last but not least.
Yeah, last but not least, exactly. Consideration and vote to approve and execute the deed acceptance and use and occupancy agreement for 149 to 169 Humphrey Street, the Athanas property, also known as the Hawthorne Restaurant. So, Peter, I don't know if you have any, what I've noticed that's different from what we've originally had in our agreement is that the date is, I think it's December 8th is the closing, which means that their use
Goes out
I
to
think originally
December
it went to October 31st, so now they're,
Yeah, Mike, we'll work with council on that. It may stay October 31st, and it may not close tomorrow, it may close Friday. I mean, these things, there's just some logistics going behind the scenes. I mean, everything's in order, I think, to
Yeah.
close. Well, let me say, I know everything's in order to close. It's just logistics now and the attorneys finishing paperwork and whatnot. And they obviously needed to wait for this vote tonight, but I do know that there's a flurry of back and forth going on with council to have all the documents done. And so it may fall to Friday, but everyone should be very excited because, as you announced last night at town meeting, this is happening.
I have a question on the deed. What about taxes? 'Cause it's, the rent is $2,000 a month, so that's $24,000.
They will not be paying taxes. They will not be paying taxes starting the day they close on the property.
We talked about.
It will fall off the tax roll.
That's right.
So it's $155 off the tax roll.
Yep.
I think you brought that up before.
Hmm?
I think you brought that up before.
I did?
You did, I think so. Having deja vu that we've had this conversation. Right here.
I remember.
Yeah.
Any other questions about this other, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Feel like it's hugely significant, but
Yeah.
it's just us sitting in a room.
Town meeting was Monday.
Yeah, exactly.
Apparently,
We had the
I lost
applause.
sight, and thank you for not correcting me, but make sure I get home safe.
Yeah, I was gonna let you keep saying last night.
He also said
keep saying-
he also said he put gas in his
Yeah.
car.
Yeah,
which isn't
exactly.
true either.
He did say that.
Metaphorical
Katie,
gas.
Yeah.
thank you for, acknowledging that.
Yeah.
So
You said squirming, and I was defending you.
I
Like
know.
literally 2 seconds ago, I
You
was
said
defending you on
squirming,
squirming. She
you
said
insulted
squirming.
me.
She said
and
squirming.
Whatever, both of you.
She said
Oh,
you're
is that-
squirming in your seat.
Is that an insult?
That was true.
Peter
I
referred
thought they were both squirming.
All right.
We all were squirming.
Regardless.
Face it.
All right.
So do we have a motion to accept the use and occupancy agreement and the deed for 149 to 169 Humphrey Street?
So moved.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I think after speaking with the folks, I need to sign this document as Catherine, not Katie. I think I should be signing anything that's recorded under my legal name. Yeah, so it should be Catherine.
I think we've had that conversation before.
We have. So the deed says Katie, just,
That's fine. I think you
Okay,
can.
we
I
can
think
make
you can handwrite Catherine.
oh, yeah, no
I'm fine.
problem. I
Yeah.
just,
Moving forward.
Okay.
I'm not going to hold up the closing because my name says
Sure,
Katie.
yeah. No, that's fine. All right. Other than that, I need a second on the motion.
Second.
Any other discussion or questions on that? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Awesome.
Yay.
Great, thanks, everybody. All right, consent agenda is the minutes of our November 30th meeting. And a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, is there a town administrator's report,
Just
Sean?
brief. This past Friday, I met with Mayor Nicholson from Lynn and the Lynn Water and Sewer Commission to give them an update on the Select Board's meeting that we had a few weeks ago regarding Kings Beach. We did talk about the preferred design recommendation of an ultraviolet light treatment facility for disinfecting bacteria for Kings Beach is the most cost-effective alternative to alleviate the public health risk. We talked a little bit about the site selection for looking at alternatives for where to locate this system. just like every major project, we have a public engagement responsibility, and I know that folks that have been following this conversation know that we have to go through that due diligence. I talked with Mayor Nicholson about really our effort to reach out to our legislative delegation and Governor Baker and really give them an update and help our legislative team on a local and federal level understand that, we've got a preferred design solution of an ultraviolet system, but we also want to look at the outfall extension as part of a phased approach. The mayor was very supportive of this, and I expect over the next 2 weeks to really get up to see Governor Baker and really get his assistance with advocating for broader state and federal investment as we transition the governorship. We did receive a $19,000 hazardous mitigation grant to update our hazardous mitigation plan. The last time we updated this was in 2015. We'll be working to update the risks and the hazards that we have in town and support some of those responsibilities. Having this plan will make us eligible for grants and other investments. We have absolutely some wonderful recreational programs. Come to Town Hall and see the gingerbread houses. It's a magical time of year, and we have a lot of programs on swampscottrec.com. Lastly, I'm just grateful for all those that came out to celebrate the life of Army Specialist Jared Raymond, who was killed in action in 2006. Our veterans agent, Mike Sweeney, and his wife, Sarah, coordinated a really wonderful tribute to a family that really typifies the best of Swampscott, but also America. Jackie Raymond and her family so gracefully reflect the burden that individuals carry on behalf of our nation and our community, and just want to thank everybody that was involved in that program. There's a blood drive at the Italian Club on Friday, December 9th. Anybody that wants to bring a friend can get 2 Celtics tickets, and there'll be a Care Dimension Tree of Light at
Drawing.
It's a
drawing
raffle.
for Celtics.
It's a
You entered into a
raffle.
drawing
Heroes
for
drawing.
Celtics tickets.
You're not just
sorry,
giving
you're
away
drawing,
Celtics
sorry.
tickets.
Yeah, I was
Giving
trying
them
to
away
up
willy-nilly.
I was trying to up the number of.
You certainly did.
They'll be calling you when there aren't enough tickets,
All right,
Sean.
Each pint also
Yeah.
gets you a pint.
That's right.
There you go.
So Tree of Lights, 5 o'clock tomorrow at Town Hall. That's a special program for anybody that has lost a loved one during the holiday season. We know that this time of year can be very, very difficult for individuals that are suffering through loss. So if you head down to Town Hall, you can have a really wonderful program that really will help you feel connected to a community of folks that are going through the same thing, but also, sharing a fellowship. That's my report.
Any questions for Sean? Select board time.
A few things. Definitely excited to go give blood on Friday. I'll be there right when it opens, and I challenge all my colleagues to do so.
You giving it the hard way?
If you can. You give 100% all the time, except when you're giving blood. And then we've talked a lot about small businesses and supporting small businesses tonight, and that's been a great conversation. And as we enter the holiday season, I think it's incredibly important that we support our local businesses, and we go out and we buy gift cards, and we shop local. So as folks are looking for those last minute holiday gifts, certainly consider walking down Humphrey Street, buying a gift card, going into our shops, and just spending your money locally. And pay attention to the Swampscott Nest, because there will likely be some videos about a gift card challenge that's going to be happening in town. So more information soon about that.
Thanks, David.
Sounds lovely. My husband already bought me a pair of gloves that he doesn't know about from the hiccups. So it's a great idea.
He's the best.
He is the best. I also wanted to mention a thank you to the Harbor and Waterfront Advisory Committee who made a presentation at a special town meeting on Monday about the information that I have diligently been working on with regards to the harbor. And they have invited all of us and all of you folks at home to participate in open discussion about the future of our harbor and the plans that they've put forward. So I encourage you all to attend the next Harbor and Waterfront Advisory Commission meeting and any open discussions about the future of the waterfront.
I want to thank the Swampscott Police Department for having the body cameras fully activated and worn. It's an initiative that started many, many, many years ago. Chief Madigan actually is the one that put it on the original capital plan where it first showed up, and I appreciated his vision. And I'm sorry it took as long as it did, but I'm very grateful that we are at a place now where we have those, because I do believe that those just will instill greater trust in our community for those that live here and those that visit here. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Peter.
So I just want to remind everybody, it is December 7th, which is when we lost 2,403 citizens and servicemen and women during the attack on Pearl Harbor. And also, I'd like to say thank you to the residents who provided that incredible memorial for Jared Raymond. That memorial is just gorgeous. And I know that the individual or the family that has put that there and the individuals who did all the work around that want to remain anonymous. And I really think that's pretty profound. And that is pretty much it. The only question I have is, we took care of the firefighters' contract at town meeting, but do we have to finish it up with voting on, and we're going to take care of that?
Well, we have to,
On the ARPA
on the
money?
ARPA funds, yeah,
Right.
which will probably be our next meeting,
Okay.
yeah.
And we'll be all done with contracts for a couple of years?
Yes, you will have
least a
5
year?
town contracts that will be all up in probably a year and a half. You'll have to start negotiating.
Does that include the school
successfully.
contract?
Teachers were settled last year, so yes, I believe the teachers, they've got a 3, 3, and 3 starting July 1st of this year.
I have just one thing, I should have mentioned it when we accepted the deed, but just to remind people, if they are watching this meeting, that we announced at the special town meeting that we will be having our kickoff event to have the community conversation about the Hawthorne property on Saturday, January 28th. Details will be coming soon. It'll be during the day. But other than that, more details to come. But just save the date, and hopefully we can get a lot of people there to provide their ideas and vision for that amazing property. With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Aye.
Thanks, Diane. Thank you, Patrick. Thanks, Jared.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
Patrick. Thank you, Jared.